Hey, welcome to Tone Talk with Marc Uzansky and Dave Friedman. It's episode 47, and we have got a great guest tonight, Michael Nielsen from Big Hairy Guitars and Ninja Tracks. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for letting me come and chat with you guys.
Oh, thanks for joining us. Dave, how's it going?
It's good. Everything's great.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Another Friday. It's a long weekend, and I'm cracking open this beer, just specially for you guys. The video keeps putting you in twice and not Michael for some reason. Now I've got all four of you guys in here.
I need to be louder or brighter.
Just be louder.
Let me show you what I got. Hang on.
Okay.
Oh, these earbuds. All right, so I got this beautiful tequila Clase Azul.
Clase Azul?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's expensive.
Yeah, it was a birthday present from my partner, and it is the best sipping tequila I've ever tried. It is amazing.
Wow.
Yes, that's amazing. Or Don Julio, 1942.
Okay, 1942. I'll make a note of that.
Those are the two that are really the best sipping. But then also a cheaper second to those would be Fortaleza Reposado.
I've never heard of that one.
They have three, of course, but the Reposado of Fortaleza is amazing. That's only like a $60-some bottle.
I'm scared to ask how much the Azul is here. Have you ever tried a? I figured as much.
Yeah, 120, 125, 130, something, maybe something like that. Same thing with the 1942.
Have you had a Paloma? It's like the poor man's margarita, where you have to get squirt, just like the old 80s, and then you just squirt tequila and lime.
Yep.
And ice. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yep.
So good. You just destroy them.
It's refreshing.
Yes, and then you got all the sugar and alcohol, and you won't sleep. You'll just be racing.
I have to avoid the sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a Paloma? It's like.
All right.
Oh, you started the video.
Don't mind me. I fixed it.
I was like, did I just say that again?
I was like, oh, deja vu.
Well, I can only mute it so fast.
I know. You can only get to it. Yeah, I know. So Michael, you live close by to Dave, or you guys are close by, right?
Yeah, I'm in Encino, which is like the 405 and the 101.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the studio is, and I live 5 minutes from here. So my kid's school is 2 minutes from Dave, which is kind of why it's easy. I just peek over there and go like, "Hey, this is new. Hang on." So like, where is it? Hey, this is new. You want me to make a video for that?
Yes.
No more? Like, I'll just take it off your desk. Perfect.
He just steals it, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. May or may not bring it back a year later.
That's okay.
It's okay. I have something more valuable, though. Of his.
Yes, collateral.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, and a Wagner Ecstasy.
Yes, you got a couple of things.
Which, by the way, is done also.
Oh, fantastic. Next week, I'll come by. Next week.
Sweet.
You better make it Tuesday, because I'm out of town after that.
Okay. I'll make a point. So, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to tangent the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Tangent.
But Dave has modified my Soldano preamp channel 2, which channel 2 is just pretty much a worthless transition between 1 and 3.
I saw that in a video of yours. You talked about that. You were kind of like, I think you had that preamp in a video, right?
Yeah, a couple. It's the weirdest choice. I don't know how like they ended up on that channel 2 and decided like that's the ticket. I mean, 2 channel 3s would have been a much better way to go, but I can't wait to hear what Dave did.
I think channel 2 might sound better than channel 3 now.
It's gonna be a long weekend.
I was pretty happy with that. By the way, I'm here tomorrow too. If you wanted to come get it.
Oh yes, I will do that. I'll swing by.
You know, it's
Sorry, fam. I'll be right back.
Yep. Like I gotta work. It's work related.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll be back. Just give me 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys, this is actually an interesting topic because I talked about it with a local guy who just helped me finish up a build that I just did, which Michael and I will talk about as well. But we were talking about how guitar players, or musicians, I guess, but guitar players more so than anyone, are so impatient and just want their stuff fast. You know? Why is that?
That never happened. What do you mean?
Why is that? I mean, I'm sure you experience that with everybody, Dave, right?
Oh, everyone wants it now. Yeah, sure. And then there's the guys that really need it now, touring guys.
Right.
You know, who really want it now, sometimes with zero amount of time to do it in.
Mm-hmm.
Just something you cope with over the years.
Yeah.
So I'm Dave probably doesn't remember the first time I met him. He modded a Randall, I think it's called the RM100. It was a white, I think 2 or 3 module, like the Synergy style module, a head. So he modded that and made a early BE sort of module for me, and that was at a different shop, long ago.
You're right. I don't remember that.
I wouldn't think so because I barely saw you, and it was a little like, oh, there's Dave Friedman, because I knew of him before.
Oh God.
I used to work at the studio, and I think it was Christopher Cross, Halen, Christopher Cross. He had a room at the same building.
Oh, I know. I remember that over
on Ventura Court.
Ventura, right?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I was upstairs, and there was a bunch of other.
The Good Earth.
Yep. R.I.P. Good Earth. So Christopher Cross was saying like, oh, we were talking gear, and I had no idea. He's like the biggest guitar, like super guitar nerd, totally into all that stuff. And he's like, oh, you should have your get your Bassman modded by Dave, or get something modded by Dave.
It's starting to ring a bell now.
And at the time he was saying, he's like, he might be hard to track down because like last I heard, Dave was in the studio with the Offspring, and he had to just stay there the whole time while they tracked to make sure the guitars.
Yes, that was the Conspiracy of One record with Brendan O'Brien.
Oh my God, you got to see a Brendan O'Brien production?
Yes.
Oh wow.
I was there at the time, yeah. I was there a couple times with Brendan O'Brien on another record too. Wait, that was the only record he did. Oh, I did something else with him too.
Oh,
Brendan's awesome.
Oh, that's so cool. I don't even know what he looks like. He's
Brendan is super cool, and works really fast. There's not really he doesn't hem and haw. Like, you're doing guitar sounds and you put an amp up, and if it's not cutting it within like a couple minutes, that amp's gone. It's out.
Really?
Because he knows right away it's either going to cut it or it's not going to cut it, and it's like it goes away quick. No, you're not going to sit there and twiddle with it forever. If it's either gets the sound fast or not. And Mike's all guitar cabinets with a 421 and a 57.
Really?
And 57 little right on the little off center, and 421 dead center.
Oh, I've never put a 421 dead center.
421 dead center, 57 where you think it would be right where the dust cap meets the,
Were you there for any Stone Temple Pilots sessions?
No, but I've known those guys for a million years.
Interesting you brought that up because
he does the same exact guitar miking and stuff and everything. It's like it's not rocket science.
Sounds so good though.
And
what were you gonna say, Mark?
Well, I was watching the Rick Beato video that he put out today on Stone Temple Pilots, the breakdown, and he mentioned that Brendan O'Brien produced that. The tone was amazing.
great thing about Brandon is he doesn't overthink things and he doesn't polish things too much. So, you know, the stuff he does has a raw element to it. Like, I don't know if you remember the band Incubus.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, Incubus at first was produced by someone else, and then Brendan got a hold of them and totally changed how they sounded completely.
He made them like organic instead of
organic and raw. Yeah.
New metal. He took all the new metal out.
Instead of rectifying, he made it more vintage Marshall and AC30s, you know, and Megalomaniac, that was the song, whatever record that was off of with them. And it was just raw sounding and just in your face, and that's what he does well.
He's so good.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he labors over it. I'm surprised that he works quickly. It sounds like it's nitpicked and
down and dirty and quick.
Oh wow.
So the mixing too is like down, dirty, quick. You know, like it's like throw them up, get it good sounding, and go for it. You know.
He knows what he wants.
But he knows how to get the drums quick too and everything. You know, he knows exactly what they use all the time, and lots of room mics, and you know.
Yeah, his drum sounds are maybe the best.
Yeah. Well, that's because that room sounds that he always puts in, you know, or plates. You know. Oh.
Was that in LA that you did that stuff for them?
Yeah, it was down at Henson Studios.
Oh, that's nice.
Might have been A&M at the time, but in the room A, the big room. Wait, room A? It might have been room D. Can't remember.
Is that the little room?
You know, I think it was D. He liked to work in the room in the back.
I think
past the big room, around down the hallway, and in the back. I think that was D.
I was there at Henson visiting a buddy of mine who was recording, and Megadeth was tracking guitars in there. They had the small room, and they must have had 16 4x12s up, and they were all mic'd. And then I heard the record afterwards. It was a worse sounding record. Like, it was such a bummer. Like, you could just use one cab. Would have sounded much better.
Yeah. No, just I learned from him. Just don't overthink things. You know, just go. And that was also, I remember watching, because Josh Freese played on that record.
Oh.
Conspiracy One was Josh Freese completely.
Oh wow.
And watching Josh, you know, they would do 4 takes of one song, live track, with the band at least, and then they'd go back and redo the guitars and stuff. But they, you know, the bass sometimes the bass got redone too, but at least the drums were playing to a band at the time. And yeah, he did 4 just for grins, because everyone was perfect. Yeah, I mean, everyone was perfect, and he's like, well, that one's fine. That one's fine. Oh, we'll just have to do it 2 more times.
There's that level of guy that's just nuts.
Yeah, because I remember in one song in particular, he was telling Josh, yeah, so in the verse, can you hit this? Literally in the middle of the song, he goes, okay, this time in the verse, hit the snare on the outside. And in the choruses, hit the snare dead center. And I watched Josh, like a machine, just change it up. And sure enough, that was great. You could definitely hear the difference and what it was doing. But he was like a machine, just changed it up. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
Totally.
He's out with Sting now.
Yeah, he's amazing. I've known him since he was like 15.
Really?
Oh, no way.
Josh Freese is playing with Sting?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when he was 15 and playing at Disneyland.
Oh, you go way back.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
He used to play in a band with a friend of mine that I used to work with, so that's how I met him, and he was 15 at the time. Or 16 or something. And he was still playing at Disneyland.
And he was probably amazing at 15 or 16.
He was good there, but I'm telling you, when he was a great punk drummer back then, you know. Really squirrely and fast and great. But where he really got great is when he started playing with Perfect Circle. Because then he got that heavy-handed, thick beat, like he got that part of his playing down. So then he could do either. And once he got that, that was it was amazing. Watch him play a perfect circle.
Yeah, those first two records are so good. And then when he's not with them, the other drummer that they have is really great, but it's so tangible. He's one of the most like tangible drummers. When you pull him out of the scenario, you're like, oh, something changed.
Yeah. No, it's not the same without Josh there.
Yeah. All right, so Perfect Circle. How did I'm going to ask you about the naked head. How did that come to be?
It came to be Billy Howardell tried a Nailer amplifier.
Like a Super Drive?
Super Drive 60. Really liked a lot about it. But he wanted it 100 watt and asked me to, can you put the Nailer preamp in this Marshall kind of thing? So I modified a head for him with the Nailer front end, maybe a few changes to it, and the power section of the Marshall, but with the feedback loop of the Nailer. So it kind of became this modded Marshall. And then he asked me, well, can you make me an amp? So then I cloned that amp, and he still uses those amps to this day.
Sounds so heavy, though. That's not something I would have associated with a Nailer.
Yeah, it's funny. It's really, well, it's a combination of his tuning and his guitar. So he tunes the C sharp.
Yeah.
And the particular guitar he has, his main guitar was an old Les Paul that he had gotten from
Trent, right?
Trent Reznor. And he got the pieces from Trent Reznor. And it was a headstock, actually. He glued a headstock off a different guitar back onto this guitar.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's at the wrong pitch, too. It's at a flat pitch, not as angled as the later ones were. So it's more like a vintage pitch now with it. And so that was all epoxied together.
Wow.
And then he used Tom Anderson H3 Plus pickups or something. I can't quite remember which model, but I think it was the old Tom Andersons with big pole pieces.
Yeah.
H3 Plus, it was kind of a hot pickup. Not something I would normally like, but with that amp, that pickup, and drop to C sharp, it is jaw-dropping to hear it in person.
By the way, Pete Thorne's in the chat.
Hey, Pete.
And he says Freese's dad was the head of all music at Disneyland, all the bands.
Yeah.
And that's why Jason and Josh are, I guess he meant bad mofos, super musical family, he said.
Yeah.
That's cool. My buddy Tom Wolf is in the chat. What's up, Tom? So that's cool. I had no idea. But the Naked never got into production, though, right?
No, it did.
Oh, it did.
It did. It wasn't a huge seller, so I discontinued it. But it could be made again.
That's one of those like that has a mystique to it that I'm just dying to hear it in person. That's kind of how I felt about the Bogner Fish. Like, just no one had one. And it was so pretty, and it was mysterious because it had these crazy names and the graphics and stuff. And I don't think it's worth what I paid for it. I'm sure the Naked is, but you could definitely tell how, like, the preamps have evolved afterwards. Like the Fish, super cool for a sound, but it's like it's here, and it needed to get here to compete with like amps today.
Like,
I could be wrong about that, but
well, you've got it. I mean, you got plenty to compare it to as well, right? So
yeah, I mean, even if you just, I think, look at the timeline of the preamps and stuff, it was like the Agnator that came later, like that sounds really refined and super finished and dialed in.
The first one was Soldano,
right? But that had that channel too. That's a dog on it.
Yeah, I mean not the first one. Some of the Boogie stuff might have been before that.
Okay, so I went looking, The
Quad
first I could
preamp.
find is the Lee Jackson. Like, he claims to have the first production preamp.
No, I don't think so. Maybe.
It was like 85, 86?
I guess so. You're right. That was before Soldano.
So Lee Jackson
But
had
it
it
was-
first.
It was a one
Yeah.
channel.
But it wasn't that good.
Yeah, it's
good.
weird. It's real weird.
I find some of his amps much better, but I'm not sure about that one. Yeah. But then when did the quad preamp come out?
Not far after that in time. Like, I
Right.
was looking at that. It said the quad and the studio, I think, came out about the same time.
No, I think quad was first.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm. I remember when the studio was popular. It was about the same time the Soldano came about.
And at the
So I
time,
lived that. I mean, I was working at Andy Brower Studio Rentals in late 1987, 88. So
87. Okay, so you're in the sweet spot of that.
So
And
I saw the Luke prototype black Soldano preamp that he had in his rack with an H&H power amp.
Oh.
Did all the cartage for that, but I remember at the time the quad was around. Yeah.
I never played I have still to this day I haven't played a quad. I have the studio.
Quad was okay if you set the graphic EQ properly, like most boogies. Scooped.
Hey, we got a cool comment from Wyatt Willis. Curious if you know, either one of you guys. Anyone know what the Cantrell mod was for the Fish preamp?
A lot of noisy gain. It was the Shark channel that was called, wasn't it? I think. And it was modded. It was the bottom channel of the preamp. I'm not looking at it right now. I haven't seen it for years.
Oh, hang on. I've got it over here. Dear. It's
So
a
the
Shark
bottom
channel.
Yeah, the bottom channel there is what was modded, and it was super high gain. And although he used the other channels more, so I remember that.
The Shark channel's real weird on its own. It has bass and treble, and then like a presence, 3-position
It's
presence switch.
completely bizarre, that channel.
And sometimes I think it's designed for like a big, heavy, grungy sound, and then other times I think it was designed to try and be like a blackface or cranked blackface thing. But it's really hard to dial in.
Yeah, that wasn't the highlight of the preamp. The brown channel probably was the highlight, or whatever the other channel.
Yeah.
What are they called on that one? I get it confused with the first preamp. Sorry.
Brown and Strato.
Yeah, the brown. The brown was the one pretty much. Yeah.
Interesting.
And even it
remember
doesn't
when
sound
it
like a
was
brown sound.
I remember when he first got. I was there when he first got the Bogner preamp.
When Jerry did?
Yeah. Making music,
really?
sold him the Bogner preamp.
Wait. So you got to start back in the beat. Young Jerry Cantrell walks in.
Young Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley sitting in the demo room. And we figured out that what he liked was the Bogner preamp, one cabinet with 25 greenbacks, one cabinet with vintage 30s, and the stereo power amp at the time. I think first it was a VHT, and later it became a Moss valve, and then later after that it was a Boogie 292, I think. So yes, we sold it to him.
That's rad.
And then later, a little bit later for the Wood record, I did the whole back line for Alice in Chains, including a vocal rack for Lane Staley.
Like with effects and stuff?
Yeah.
That is so cool.
That
Yeah.
Moss valve power amp is, not to offend anyone if they have it and use it and get a good sound, but it's terrible.
Oh, I don't think so.
I have
Really?
one. I have
Yeah.
one. I have one. I use it for a wet, dry, wet setup.
And I would be fine for that.
It's fine for
sure.
that, but okay. But go ahead, Dave. What were you going to say about it?
Jerry used it for a long time with the Bogner preamp.
That was the preamp when you went to the music stores that they had in their preamp rack. They'd had the Moss valve, and then they typically would have like the triple giant from Hafler, an 80A MP1, and a Marshall preamp. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of it. That was maybe a group 2 preamp. I had one for a while, and I got rid of it after I did all the demos and stuff because I'm like, I don't know. I probably would like it. That happens. I sell it and then I buy it again.
The Moss valve?
Like, what was I doing? Yeah.
Pretty good, actually.
I like mine. I like mine.
Could use a tad more low end, but
yeah.
Could you?
I don't know. Coming off of the VHTs, it's just, to me, it's always hard to go back to the.
Well, the VHT is very hyped though. A lot of lows, a lot of highs, very hyped. It didn't really sound like a Marshall, and the Moss valve sounded a little more like a Marshall power section. Not exactly, but a little more like it.
Okay. Yeah, the 2150 is super scoop.
Of course, then again, I'm talking from experience from many years ago. So I haven't heard one actually in person for a long time.
Could the Moss valve be used with the Synergy preamps?
Sure.
Yeah, it could be. Okay. I may have to set.
Or you just get the Synergy power.
Right, but but I already have the Moss valve, so.
Oh, Mike, someone in the chat said Mike Provost said, "What do you think about the Rivera TBR 1M?" I happened to have bought one when I was maybe 18 or 19 over at I think it was called the Amp Shop in sort of almost Winnetka, Canoga Park.
It was
right next to where
ABK
Norm's
Rocks.
used to be. No, it was right next to where Norm's was. There's Norm's was on the corner, and then like two tiny little shops in. There was a little tiny amp shop in there.
Not sure.
Well, they had a Mesa Boogie Mark III or the Rivera, and I had a choice, $800 either one. So I got this Rivera, not realizing that the M was their like Fender style one and not their high gain one that like Skid Row used and Saigon Kick and John Syxes I says he used it, but so it was always just trying to get gain out of that thing. But it was the clean sound was really sweet, and it weighs like 150 pounds, and it's made of just pure steel. So it sounds good, but I would never want to move it.
There's a cool comment here. Interesting comment. Dave, I want your thoughts on this. From Ken 952 GTR, 30th anniversary of VH-OU812. I heard Ed used a Cameron preamp in an effects loop of Marshall borrowed from Lukather. Any confirmation?
No.
No.
he used, and no, it wasn't on that record either. He used a custom audio electronics preamp into the power section of an amp from Steve Lukather on a couple songs on the Fuck record.
But he's never used a Cameron amp.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
OU812 Marshall, old Marshall. Through his Bradshaw.
That's personally my favorite Sammy album.
So Mark, when did you get into Van Halen? Like, what was your like? Oh, there's this band called Van Halen.
Oh, it was back in the 80s. I was in camp like 1980, and we were listening to Eruption and stuff like that. So, but I wasn't like a huge fan. Then 1980. I was a big fan, but like it wasn't like like fandom or a big passion of mine. But then 1984 came out, and all the videos of MTV, and that was like my whole generation. That was like everything to me. I just sat and watched MTV all day, like all Saturdays and at night, and had friends come over and we watched the videos. And so it was all about, that whole time. And so Van Halen was huge. And then they broke up. So I never went to go see them with Sammy at all. And And then when they got back together in 2007, was it? That's when like my interest got all back again. I'm like, Dave's back. I'm fucking going. I'm going to Charlotte. I flew there. I couldn't get anybody to go with me. I flew there by myself. Went to the show to see the opening show because I was convinced it wasn't going to get past like 3 shows. I was like, I'm going to the first one because in case it completely implodes, I'm going. So I went to the first show, and since then I've been just like, and I wasn't into playing guitar back then in the 80s. So that's that. Now back in 2007 I was already playing guitar, and so I was like, I got to get back and I got to start playing some Van Halen stuff. So what about you? When did you get into Van Halen? 'Cause I know you're a fan.
Yeah, I was super fan, but like as a kid, I was always aware of it in the videos, but it really struck me around the 5150 OU812 era. And I went back and I was like, oh my God, look at all these albums that I have to like digest. This is incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
and
that's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I didn't realize I'd go through and be like, is this original song? There's so many covers. I'm like, wow, these guys are the best writers ever. All these other people covered their songs too. As a kid.
Yeah, they
Dancing the Night Away.
They did do a lot of covers. A
lot.
They did. They really did. I mean, even their first album had, well, at least You Really Got Me. I don't know anything else on there that was a cover, but a lot of covers for an original band. Most bands around that time didn't come out with cover songs on their albums.
Well, I like a lot of keyboards and stuff too, so like I'm happy with the later stuff. And I was young enough to just go like, oh, that's what it is. There's a new singer. I didn't have like a strong opinion on Dave versus Sammy.
Yeah, for me it was like I was anti-Sammy for a while.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, like all my friends went to go see the Monsters of Rock. I remember in Miami, a bunch of my friends went to go see it. I was like, nope, I'm not going to see it. I regret it now. I mean, shit, I wish I had gone because to me it's all about Eddie. It had nothing to do with the singer. I should have gone just to go see Ed.
That's the story of from a different podcast of Jake and Monsters of Rock with Eddie and the big rails. If you look back and you can see what we're talking about.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Won't go into that again.
No, but yeah. That was. Yeah, but the Monsters of Rock. I wish I had seen it because I think that was with Metallica, right? And who else was with them? Slayer or I forget. Do you know?
I think Ozzy on that Monsters of Rock
was
thing
it
too.
Was it Ozzy? It was
Must have been.
It was 88. Well, yeah, you're right because that's what Jake said, right? So yeah. So Michael, let's talk about you because I want to hear about how you got into playing guitar. How you got because you're a producer. You have Ninja Tracks, which I understand does production and composition for movies soundtracks as well as video games. So that's I think like your passion, your day job. I think I don't know.
Yep.
And then you also have your Big Hairy Guitars channel on YouTube, which I think a lot of people know and love. If you don't subscribe to that channel, make sure you do. Everybody go to Big Hairy Guitars on YouTube and subscribe. It's really great videos. Really great channel. He does some great videos of reviews and stuff. So how'd you get into all this stuff? Take us from the beginning.
Yeah. So the beginning was like 7th grade, and just fell in love with guitar. A kid brought me over to his house. He's like, check this out. He's like, I just want you to. I remember the moment. He's like, I just don't think I'm like a heavy metal guy or anything, but check this out. And he put on the Whitesnake '87 album. And my jaw dropped, and I was just like, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. So I guess it was around 86, 87 where, like, guitar really hit me. I always liked music, but... so, yeah, then it was just guitar land through high school. And in college, it was hitting that transition of, like, all right, well, it turns out I'm not going to be Ozzy's guitar player. Clearly, I'm not that good. And... music is changing also, and I liked it. I was young enough to go like, well, okay, I like this grunge stuff too. now I need to figure out how to play a little more sloppy and put a little more like heart and soul into my playing. So I feel like I'm grateful for that time now, because like I have this 80s thing that I love, which is very precise and tight. And then also the just dirty, sloppy, simple stuff from the 90s that has really panned out later. And that's kind of the side I use more than not in work anyway. So in college, I met this guy who wanted to be a composer, and he ended up becoming a composer. He's this guy Brian Tyler, and he scored a ton of movies now, Fast and Furious and Thor and that stuff. So as he started taking off, I was like, well, I think I could do this myself too. I'd like to do it. So I started doing music production, and I had a couple friends, and we worked at Guitar Center, and we were like, hey, let's form a music production company. And so we did, and they had some contacts, and we started writing songs and that. And, I was coming from I know the keys of E minor and I know the key of A minor pretty darn well. And now I have to try and write a song for the new TLC album, or try and pitch a song for that. So my whole life has been a lot of trial by fire after that point. And, we did pretty well as a production company. We never had a lot of radio success, but I had a lot of success licensing my music into movies. So we did stuff for like The Baha Men, which was right after Who Let the Dogs Out. So I didn't get the radio hit, but then we got like music in the Scooby-Doo movie and Crocodile Hunter, and we were working with Kenny Loggins, who's like a songwriting hero of mine, doing pre-production for his album. We did pre-production for Barry Manilow, and we did tour music production for Lenny Kravitz. And so it's amazing when you get to be around people that are at such a high level, especially young, because at some point you start thinking like, well, it must be a trick. Like there's trickeration involved in this. And then they sit in front of you and they play a song. And you're like, oh no, it's not a trick at all. You're on some other level.
Right.
Like Kenny Loggins plays a song on acoustic guitar, and you're like, yeah, that's it. That's it. So but during that time, we did some cool stuff, and after we broke up there, like I was still on that path, but it was such a shitty time in music. Like it was when every 14-year-old girl on a TV show was trying to have an album, and I rarely got to play guitar. But I met this guy Philip Sayce, who I don't know if any of you guys know Philip Sayce, who's a monster blues rock player, and we hit it off like long lost friends. And so I produced a couple of his albums. And Marc, you should check him out. He's amazing. He's a fire breather.
Marc, you don't know who Philip Sayce is?
I don't.
Oh my Jesus!
I'm gonna look him up right now.
He's a beast.
It's like the modern day Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Really?
Yeah. It's strange. Like in a way, if you blend Stevie Ray Vaughan and sometimes Yngwie Malmsteen, although he wouldn't agree with the Yngwie part, because I don't even know if he's listened much to that, but he's so fast and fluid.
How do you spell his last name?
Sayce.
Sayce. And it's
so start with Peace Machine. That's the first album that we did together.
And it's Philip?
No.
Yeah. Just look on YouTube too.
Yeah.
It'll be a jaw on the ground.
Well, he's not on iTunes, unfortunately.
He should be. I'll send you links.
All right, yeah,
later.
send me the links. Yeah, I'd love to hear him, because I'm a big blues guy. I mean, at one point I was like, of course, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and and then I've listened to Joe Bonamassa and Kenny Wayne Shepherd and all these other guys, and Johnny Lang and
Philip's.
I was
amazing.
Say, yeah, those guys are good, but okay, Philip's amazing.
He rehearses across the street here.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, you can hear him probably at my house, which is about a half a mile away.
Yeah, he's more ferocious than Bonamassa. Like Bonamassa's got this sweet spot of you could put it on while you're like on a boat and chill and still enjoy that stuff, Phil is face melting like top to bottom.
Is he like Jared James Nichols?
I actually don't know what that is.
Oh, you don't know Jared James Nichols? We're going to have to trade guys now, you see?
All right, there it is.
Philip's on a different planet.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he's one with the guitar. But as a producer, for me, every time we're together, and he's into this, he's a beautiful person, and we have a really strong connection and a lot of trust. So my job is always to strip that back, because there's plenty of Phil to shred in the world, and live, it's worth seeing. It's unbelievable. For the record, it's like, let's put all that aside. Let's just slow way down, because he's got so much to say musically. Slower. He's got this beautiful slow playing, but he's so ferocious it just like starts ramping up. But so back to just like I got to work with Philip Sayce. That was incredible. I got to work with Eric Gales. You know Eric Gales?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We wrote 3 songs for his record called I Am Me, All of Me, something like that. They're the poppier records, so probably anyone that likes Eric Gales are like, these songs suck. but that was another amazing thing where you just sit in a room with a guy and you're like, oh, okay. That's what a real guitar player.
He's an amazing.
He's unbelievable also.
Yeah, he's incredible. Isn't he playing the guitars upside down, right? Or am I thinking?
Yeah. Upside down and backward and
strung upside.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess, but it's easy because you don't have to bring a separate guitar. He just takes a right-handed guitar and plays it.
That's crazy.
He's a beast. And when we got to hang out a lot with Lenny Kravitz, his guitar player Craig Ross. I don't know if any of you guys are hip.
He's
Craig
amazing.
Ross.
He's amazing also, yeah.
Incredible.
So good. He's just so underrated. Like, it's a shame that he doesn't get to really like jump out. He got to play a lot on the Doyle Bramhall Smokestack record, which is a great record.
That's a great record, yeah. Green Light Girls, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole album's great.
Yeah, and Craig is kind of turned down on one side, like, you know, here, and you occasionally get a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's so good. So good.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to mention another guy who's like that. That's like a side player. That's an amazing player. Is Peter Stroud.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. He's great.
Yeah, tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just don't get the limelight. But yeah, what's the name of the guy who plays with Lenny again? I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
Craig Ross.
Craig Ross. Yeah. Great player.
Are You Gonna Go My Solo, which is just as good as it gets.
Yeah, I saw Lenny live several years ago, but he is so good. The whole band was just insane. Oh. So how was it working with Lenny?
I didn't get to work with Lenny much, so he was getting ready for a tour, and my lead singer and part of the production company was one of his background singers. So he worked with him a bunch. We got to go over to his Florida house a couple times and stuff, and he was very gracious and stuff, but he was still like very high level rock star, and we were just kind of like kids over there. It was more I got to hang out with this band, which was fine with me because that's what I was interested in anyway, really. I had come over to a little apartment to play on some demos for singer. And we had a song that's like, hey man, would you mind just playing on this? And he's never heard the song before. And it's a big outro solo. It's not like the most complicated thing ever. It was kind of like a Pink Floyd outro. And he plugged a little Fender 52 LE reissue butterscotch into a V1 Line 6 pod. And it's still one of the best tones I've ever heard. Like, he destroyed a solo, first take down. It's like, oh. That's another one of those moments where you're like, oh, that's what it is.
that's why you're a professional.
Yes.
Those pods, man, that's so funny. You know, I remember those pods. They sounded pretty good.
Especially for the time.
Yeah.
I think, like, not much you could do. Be direct. thing, and they just sounded really bad before. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so getting back to this, so like I hit about 29, and I was like, I'm gonna kill myself if I have to go into any more pop music sessions. It was getting dark, so I just quit. I was like, that's it. And a lot of my music, it also was a little more dramatic than what pop music required. So I quit, and then I ended up getting a movie to write all the songs for a movie with a friend of mine for a movie called Another Cinderella Story that had Selena Gomez in it. And so we got to do a bunch of rock songs with her, and they turned out really good. And so they released a bunch as a single, and so I got the first single on Selena Gomez, which was cool. She was a sweetheart. And then I started doing movie trailers and scoring that. And I found that I was much more adept at doing this big dramatic music. And then bringing in the rock stuff, which there wasn't a lot of those elements in sort of the scoring stuff, especially for trailers and advertising, which I was pretty good at. So it kind of got from there when I hit 30 years old, and just started building out from there. And so what my company Ninja Tracks do, like I'm one of the primary writers, we do music for movie trailers, and then we've also scored, me and my writing partner, several video games. We did the last two Forza Motorsport games on Xbox. We've done Tom Clancy games and a bunch of movie tie-ins. Yeah, so, and then like 5 years ago, I was like, I still don't get play enough guitar. Like, rarely do I get to play a song from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a reason to do it. And so the Big Hairy Guitars was sort of my love letter to guitars. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to try and buy all these things that had in my dreams when I was 15, and try and learn a song from beginning to end. And still, it's like, when I come in, it's like, oh, I want to make a video today, and then work gets in the way. You know, thankfully, work gets in the way often. And but it's always in the back of my mind, like, oh gosh, it's a lot to maybe. I'm super nerdy. A lot of my videos are just like, I try to make them fun, but some of them are so barely watchable because it's 50 minutes.
I don't think so.
Of different reverbs doing the same just over and over. But like, I totally get off on the like super nerdy, like, what's this string sound like this versus this string, or this tube versus this tube, or this speaker versus this speaker. Like that stuff makes me happy. Like, I just relish that stuff.
So do I. I mean, many years ago, do you remember the Alex attenuator?
Alex.
Yeah.
That was on the gear page. So
Yeah.
I bought the Alex attenuator, and I made a video on YouTube going through each of the different attenuations to
Later became the scumbag attenuator.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
They bought it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then there was the Faustine attenuator after that.
I remember that one.
But I didn't
have one.
But I didn't get that one. But yeah, so I made a video because I was just like geeking out on, okay, well, let's see what the attenuation differences are and what's the tone difference, and you know, I
like 15 years of, you read it in a magazine, and at some point every magazine review was exactly the same. Like, it's bright with warmth and dark, and you're like, none of it really does anything. Like, I gotta hear this thing. And
right.
It was a dude on, I think it was Harmony Central. My wife used to call it like, oh, you're talking to your peeps, because I'd just sit there on my little Blueberry iMac. But it was a guy, Menatone Man, that would sold a VHS tape.
I remember him.
Of an amp show. He had the Ecstasy and a Soldano and Agnator and stuff.
Yeah.
Just watch that repeat. They all kind of sound the same because it's a camera like 5 feet away in a rehearsal space. But
so he sold a VHS or sent a VHS out of the recordings of these amps.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing it out of the kindness of his heart, because everyone's like, he had it.
Right.
It's like, please dub it off, please. This is gold.
Hey, Robert Baker's in the chat.
Hey.
What's up, Robert?
Hey.
That's my guy.
And also, Michael, your connection is lousy.
Yeah, your connection Yeah, it's a little shoddy.
Let me open the door. Maybe it'll get better.
What did he say he was going to do?
I don't know,
Okay.
but he's gone. Robert, hi.
Maybe he adjusted something.
Hopefully that's better. I opened the door. I have like bulletproof doors, so sometimes it's not great for the internet connection. Hopefully that's a little better.
Okay. Well,
Don't you just have like Ethernet connection instead of Wi-Fi?
I don't for my laptop. My hardline main computer is.
okay.
That's the problem.
It's Wi-Fi. We'll deal with it. No worries. So what's up, Robert Baker? Thanks for joining the chat. So how often are you working on projects like that, and are you doing multiple projects at the same time? Like, and I'm just curious how that works for you, Michael.
Yeah, we're like I'm usually working on 2 or 3 different pieces of music a day, and they'll come back for notes, so it'll hit. I'll have to jump from session to session, but we're all every day that we're just writing music for trailers, because the way that works is you have to pitch the music, and then they cut it to picture, and then it goes out, gets tested. It has to go up the hierarchy of the studios, and then it either wins out or it doesn't. So it's a lot of work, and you just hope that one of them lands, so you get paid on it.
I saw you worked on Rouge One.
Yeah, so all of these are for the big films. It's always the trailers. So yeah, we had a lot of Star Wars activity. I think it was last year, the year before last. We did a bunch of their commercials and a bunch of the promos for Rouge One.
So is it so like what are we hearing that you're working on in like the trailer? Is the background music or
yeah, all of the music, like I can't remember what might be out recently here. I'd have to look back and through, but we have our website ninjatracks.com, and it has a bunch of the recent stuff on there. So the way it works is in a film they're still cutting and filming, so they don't have their final score. They send it out to get a trailer made before sometimes the movie's even done. So they need music that doesn't have to reflect what the actual movie is. It has to be exciting and impactful and dramatic. So that's where we come in and we do that kind of stuff.
So did you have to write in the theme of the Star Wars like type of music, or was it just completely up to you?
Yeah, sometimes the Star Wars stuff, we've done a lot of Star Wars stuff that of course you want the John Williams theme, and it was the same with Harry Potter when those were coming out, James Bond, they always want to have a little theme. Like, it's been cool this week. I had a bunch of sometimes they'll bring in a song, like here's an old Cream song, or here's an old Led Zeppelin song, but we need it to be like bigger. So then I get to kind of like dig in there and tweak that stuff out. I was working on it. This one didn't go, but I was working on Motley Crue song. What was it? Livewire. And so they sent me all the stems from the session, which was so awesome to be able to dig through all of the each track, all 10 snare sounds that they had for Tommy, and all the extra little like keyboard guitar parts, and it was really cool to see that stuff. That was a treat. Like, I'll do it. I don't even care if it goes final. Just send me the Motley Crue stems.
Yeah. Let me listen to it for a while.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
So I have all these cool, because Vince Neil was like ad-libbing throughout, that clearly they just brought the fader down. And so he just halfway through, he's like, like prepping for the next chorus and getting his voice ready.
That's
so
funny.
One day I'll make a ringtone out of all of my Vince Neil.
Awesome.
It's better than the current ringtones that you can make. The video of they were comparing him to Bob Dylan, where he was saying,
"Oh yeah,
it's bad.
it's rough."
Right.
But he delivers on the record at some point. It comes together.
That's
Good
true.
stuff.
That's true. That's true. So let's jump into the chat and see what we got going on. Here's a question. Hey, Dave, how come you put EL84s in the Junior?
Because
they sound good. Demise Phil said.
To be honest, like the choices for a low power tube are kind of slim. It's not really great to make a 20-watt amp that uses EL34s, and you're just like dropping the voltages all to hell, and you're kind of neutering them. It's better to use a smaller tube, and your choices then are a 6v6, which sounds nothing like an EL34, or a EL84 that sounds a lot like an EL34, to be honest, if you do the power section right. And you know, people that say that EL84 amps don't sound big or they're mid-rangey and stuff, I mean, they're like listening to a Vox or something. It's just not, they're not really hearing how they can sound. And as Michael knows, since the video just came out today, he did with the JJ Junior, it does not sound small.
No, it's amazing.
And if you compare it, we did this in NAMM. If you compare the amp to the real one, the big one, as long as you know you're not driving the piss out of it at moderate volumes, it sounds exactly the same. In fact, I've had one reviewer say he likes it better than his Double J that he has.
Yeah,
Because
jumping from the
sounds better.
the BE channel on the JJ Junior versus the BE channel, it's hard to say. Like, there's a nice little like fatness and compression you get on the 20 watt that feels so good to play through. It's really forgiving.
Yeah. It's almost like the lower power thing. It's almost it's kind of funny. I took one of the power sections of
I'll be right back.
one of these EL84 amps, and I essentially converted the amp to make it a plexi, right? So I wanted to see how close with that power section I could get to my 50-watt plexi with a Variac. And, well, it got to a point where we couldn't tell the difference. so maybe that'll be an amp in the future.
Oh,
A 20-watt plexi with EL84s.
dude.
It's just like the 50-watt Variac plexi, my famous one.
Oh,
I was even here with Pete, who might still be listening or not, and we're like listening back and forth. He's like, "Yeah, I can't tell the difference."
wow.
But the funny thing, a 20-watt amp is as loud as a 50-watt amp Variac. So, the 20 watts aren't. It's not like they're really low in volume.
No,
they're loud.
I've got the Run 20.
They can kick it.
That amp can get very loud. It can play with a band, no doubt.
Oh yeah, sure.
I had for the first time played live with my school's dad band a couple weeks ago. So I brought my mini Dirty Shirley, and the other guitar player had an orange. I think it was a 50 watt. Maybe it might have been 100 watt. But the Dirty Shirley was fine. It was way fatter sounding, so it wasn't as like crisp, sort of ice picky. But once you get about halfway up, you've got to about all the volume you're gonna get.
Yeah.
But it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
and
great.
It sounded great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all these people that saying EL84 is this and that, just listen to mine. It's quite different.
Yeah,
It's
like
not what you think it is.
no, like I bought a while back. I got a Vox Night Train, one of those.
Yeah. Well,
like
that's
lunchbox, cheap EL84. It sounded like the buzziest piece of shit. That I returned it within like 2 weeks of having it, maybe even sooner. And that was my perception of what EL84 amps sound like with high gain and
yeah, and not at all really. The funny thing is, even I think people don't know because they haven't had experience with great EL84 amps. So like a vintage Vox top boost, copper top, AC30 can be aggressive and huge sounding like a Marshall can. And it's, I have one. It's amazing.
Nice. Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I think I wrote you one day. I was like, the Run 20 was completely exceeded all my expectations of what a EL84 amp could be. I was like, crazy how good it sounds. So I think we had a question from Timothy Pierce, not Tim Pierce, Michael, but Timothy Pierce, and he wanted to know what's the difference between the JJ Junior and the Runt. Is it just he said, is it just the Runt 20 with some tweaks or what?
Well, the architecture is like a Runt 20, but no, the power section's different. The preamp section is different. I literally took the original amp, the big guy, and literally sat there with amp switchers and would switch between the two preamp sections into one power section till those were perfect. And then I would switch between the power sections of the two amps and with one preamp section, and until that was, dialed in so it sounded just like the big one. So yes, the basic architecture is the same, but it's not the same amp at all. I mean, the preamp and the power sections are different.
Yeah, it's easy to forget when you're playing the JJ Junior that it's 20-watt amp. It felt more like the Runt 50 if I had to pair it up. Outside of the clean channel, which is similar to the Runt 20. But when you're in the dirty side, it's so robust.
Yeah, that's good. Your video is amazing. Sounds great.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it today, but I'm definitely going to check it out.
And well, with 20 watts, so much easier to record than a 100-watt amp. You just put it wherever you want. I mean, I could probably do it. I have a space, so the garage. This is a house where the master bedroom or the two bedrooms have been converted into two studio control rooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it was a single car garage that's now the live room, and everything is wired in between it. So I could get a 100-watt amp loud, but it shakes the neighborhood still, even though it's all soundproofed. The 20-watt is great, and it still feels really loud, like it pushes air, like really hard. And the microphones like it better, I think.
It's not quite as brutal on them.
Yeah, there's a certain, maybe it's just the size of the room. If I had a 50-foot by 50-foot room, you could really start pushing some big air. But in a smaller ISO room, the 20 watts is a really sweet spot for that.
So in your video, I haven't seen it yet. I gather you do both direct and miking a cab with it?
Not on the JJ Junior. I'm not a big direct guy. Like I'm trying to find it, but I find like the direct stuff tends to have a bigger sonic imprint than like maybe even the amp. So like if I'm doing like a 2 notes thing or something, I feel like I could turn tone knobs on the amp and it's not doing as much as when I'm mic'd up. Like the impulse response has a way bigger impact on the tone than turning knobs on the amp.
Interesting.
So I try to do mic'd up amp stuff, mic the speaker cab anytime I'm doing a amp demo, just because I think it helps get the voice of the amp across a little better rather than getting an IR across. Like, this is a great IR,
No, that's great.
The Talman 25, 20-watt EL84 Friedman Plexi, take my money. Well, watch for it. I think it'll happen eventually.
Robert Baker has a question. Dave, do you know what Jerry was using in that new Ernie Ball video? Was it the JJ or JJ Junior?
No, the new Ernie Ball video was his whole rig. His whole standard, it was sitting behind him, his whole standard touring rig. So two double J's. one set on the BE channel, one set on the JBE channel. One with 25-watt greenbacks and one with vintage 30s. The JBE one has vintage 30s and the BE one has greenbacks. Blended.
Can I answer Joel?
Yeah.
Joel Eakins said, what's your opinion on the Boss DD500 versus the Strymon Timeline?
I get an opinion on this too. I want to hear if it's the same as yours.
I think the Strymon stuff is really good, for sure, and it looks really pretty. But I think the Boss is way better sounding. And I think even better than that is the source audio delay, and the source audio reverb is better. Maybe a little. I prefer it to the Boss stuff, but I think the Boss stuff is better than the Strymon stuff generally. If I had to do a test or just grab something and go, I would pick the Boss stuff. I think it's just a little better.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I have a DD500. And I think it's awesome.
DD500 and the SDE 3000 preset.
The vintage delay setting.
Vintage digital.
Yeah, that's it. You got it.
And you can. I did a delay and a reverb video, and you can hear them. It's just, I have a El Capistan on my board, and I think that's amazing. Yeah, it's one of my favorite for slapback. It's so vibey. So like, I love Strymon, just as an all-purpose do everything delay. That Boss, it sat in the mix better, and it felt closer to the rack stuff to me.
The El Cap is amazing. The El Cap is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can't go wrong with either of them, but the DD500 is great. So I think it's JT Hair 1. Hey guys, just wanted to know if Dave will have a Jakey Lee signature amp in the works. Thanks.
Yeah, that's coming. Probably limited run though. Not a permanent amp.
Okay. Richard Boyer says the jam track for the JJ video is kick-ass. Did Michael already have that written, or did he create it for the video?
Thanks, man. No, I wrote it for the video. I could generally, if I have time to sit down and do it, I could generally work very fast, because that's kind of my job. Is I'll get a call and they'll say like, "Hey, we need 3 minutes of an orchestra that turns into a rock thing and that morphs back out, and we need it by 5 o'clock." So I could either just say no and not work, or I just got to figure out a way to do it. So I can work very fast. But it's so nice to be able to just do heavy guitar related stuff. So I prefer to just write it from the ground up. And also, like, I can't do it without having the piece of gear. Like, I had to have the JJ Junior to see what it does.
To be inspired to write the track.
Yeah, because it's like it does a thing, and it's like, ooh, I love the way it handles big open, like, suspended chords, or I like the way it chunks or whatever. So like, that's the stuff that really like is exciting about. I think that's why I want a new amp every month, and I want a new guitar every month and a half. So
it's a horrible addiction, isn't it?
It's terrible.
It really is.
Really terrible. So can we talk briefly or not briefly about your build?
Yeah, sure.
That's so awesome. So is a essentially like a partscaster?
It is a partscaster. Yeah, I ordered. So when we had Jakey Lee on, it kind of inspired me when we started talking to him about his guitar, and some of the cool features that he has on it that are very unique. Clearly, the slanted pickups, the trem. It was just so different than anything that I currently have. I was like, all right, I want to build something, but I want it to be completely different. So there's a guy. His name is Chris Locke. He makes bodies and necks, Locke guitars, if you guys want to check it out online. So I ordered a roasted ash body. If you guys can see that. A roasted ash body and a roasted maple neck with a rosewood, board. And it's just
Totally cool.
what's that?
Totally cool.
Yeah, dude, this guitar. So what I did was I love it.
Fender scale?
What's that?
Is it Fender scale?
Yeah, Fender scale.
Okay.
And so I just got some gun stock oil, and I oiled it up, put a few coats on it, and then I just took some steel wool and rubbed it out so you can see the grain, and then I just put a thin coat over on top of it, and it just came out fantastic.
What pickups did you put in there?
So it's got a Friedman bridge pickup.
Is that the Plus or the Classic?
It's the Classic. It's the lower gain one, right? The Plus is the one that's in the NoHo, right, Dave?
No. The Classic Plus. That's probably what you got. Classic Plus.
Yes.
You got Plus, right? Yeah, the Classic Plus.
It's like 8.2K.
8.3, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And then the single coils. What's that?
You need the Triple D.
The Triple D. What's that?
That's the humbucker that's in the NoHos.
Oh, I do need to get that.
That's a cool pickup. Oh, we'll come back to that. I want to finish the guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the two single coils are what Jake has in his guitar, the SD1 DiMarzios.
Oh, then you definitely need the hotter humbucker.
Yeah, I probably do.
The single coils are probably hotter than the humbucker.
Are they noiseless?
No.
No, they're actually pretty buzzy.
Is it SDS1s? Is it or the S?
I think they're SD1. I think it's called
SD1.
I think so. Yeah, it's great. It's got the five.
The whole thought behind the SD1s was to match up to the JB humbucker. Because it's very sensitive about that. So it's like in the guitars that have the blue guitar has a different pickup in it. It doesn't have the JB in it, and I think the single coils are different in that too, like lower gain. It's very sensitive about the gain levels of the pickups.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll probably have to get the higher output pickup from you then, and try.
Where are you going, Mike?
I was trying to open the door to the machine room to see if I'd get better Wi-Fi signal.
No, your signal's good. It's been good.
Oh, okay.
Since you opened the door, it's been good.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. No problems. I just have to say that Chris Locke did some amazing, just the neck on it. Yeah. What's that?
Looks amazing.
Yeah, he really.
Yeah. What kind of neck profile did you got going?
It's like a C, like a thicker C. It's really great. He just knocked it out of the park. I got the bridge is from Killer Guitar Components. It's just this full brass bridge, and I got an Yngwie Malmsteen brass nut, and this thing just sings. I mean, it literally just sings. So, yeah, So
how much did you do as far as putting it together? Did you just get the component? You had Chris do like the fretwork and stuff?
He did the fretwork and the body. I stained the body. I put the guitar together except for the electronics. I had a buddy of mine install the electronics for me because I'm starting to get blind and I can't see shit.
But you have glasses.
I do, but I can't. I'm still struggling with just
stronger glasses.
Yeah. So I just said, hell with it. He can do it real fast. He just whipped it out. So that sounded bad. He just whipped. He just got it done real fast. What's that?
Now we see.
Yeah. It's got a lot of brass accoutrements to it. So, I'm digging it. It's a really cool guitar. So if you want to build one, Michael, I'm like $900 into it. That's basically what it cost me to build the whole thing.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Yeah, I think this guitar would cost like $3,000.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and there I just banged it. So there you go.
I borrowed Robert from over at Friedman his guitars for the NoHo demo that I did a couple weeks ago, and I don't know. As I was returning these pristine brand new guitars, there was dings like in the thankfully it wasn't in the top, but it was in the side. I have no idea how they got there. It's like it reaffirmed. I had all the dread when I was 16 and I dropped my Ibanez RG760 and the chip fell off, and I was just like, oh, new guitars are the worst. Like, say what you want about relics and aged guitars.
Oh, that's the greatest, because you can toss it on top of your amp, and if it fell over, oh well, I dinged it. Whoops.
It's the best.
You can, like, for me, like in the shop here, oh my God, you see the shop here, and it's like I literally could lay the guitar on top of my tools on the bench if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I saw Dave was working on a preamp for me, a Akasha. He's fixing up Akasha, and he unplugs the cable and he throws it at the guitar. He didn't throw it near. He threw like the end of the cable was just like towards.
That wasn't intentional, but
but it goes to show, like, it just doesn't really matter. It's like this fancy new guitars. Oh,
I know guys that can fix it if I break it. So
yeah,
that's true. So speaking of not, like you look at it and you just go, okay, it's a relic, so it's okay. I was playing my Friedman guitar just the other day, and I took it off, and my ceiling's pretty low here, and I've got a ceiling fan, and I just took it off, and the headstock just hit the ceiling fan.
Oh no!
And it just put a ding right into the headstock, and I looked at it, and it was part of just a series of dings that were already there, and I was just like, oh well, and I just put it back down.
Yeah, unlike the GJ2 Concorde.
Right. Exactly. That's
which the poor Concorde.
Oh man!
Shipped the first time, and
just bad luck with that one. Which is really, actually, here's the funny story on that, Dave. Ironically, Grover was like, "Oh, we never have those brakes on those guitars," and then I saw one for sale on Reverb that they had found up in the rafters, and it had a broken spot in the exact same spot. And I'm like, I think that's a problem, Grover. I think that one little, the wood's just a little too thin in that area, but it's not like he's making those guitars anymore anyway, really,
Right.
I think I've seen this 3 times from Jimmy Biter. He might explode if you don't answer.
What's the question?
Opinion on the Peavey Classic 120 power amp.
The 120, that used to be great. I used to recommend that power amp. It's a good power amp. Heavy, big, but sounds great, actually.
Okay, so and this is going to segue, I think Dan Huff had one in his later racks. He had a VHT and a Peavey Classic power amp. So you said the other day that you built at least one of Dan Huff's rigs. So I have this question. There's guys like Lukather and Huff, maybe not so much Landau, but monster players. But they don't seem to me like guys that sit around and program like a Lexicon reverb. Do people come to you and say like, hey, I want a Daly Studio sound, or whenever it was, and you program all these sounds, or do you sit with them? Or
back in the day when the rack was the thing, yes, we would program stuff sometimes for them. It wasn't all that difficult. It was I mean, Lukather was all about the PCM-70 and circular delays.
Which is a cool
certain software version.
V2.
Yeah. And that has circular delays. And that was the one. Man, that was just like swimming in this beautiful stereo lusciousness. You can't top that sound. And Landau was all about his PCM-42s. All of them had the SPX-90 and micro pitch shift.
Oh.
And or the Eventide and micro pitch shift. Oh wait, was it called on the SPX? Was it called micro pitch shift? Pitch detune, I think it was called.
Here, let's fire it up.
SPX-90.
Yeah.
And then they also so the SPX-90 was all about the the Eventide was micro pitch shift. SPX-90 was pitch detune or something. And if I recall, it was the fine adjustments on that, and it was like negative. You'd use like -8 and +8 or something around there.
There's one called pitch change.
Maybe it was pitch change.
Yeah, I think I've gone in a circle. There's not that many patches on here.
It would be pitch, so it would,
Change, I think.
pitch change, and then in the settings, there was fine adjustments that were like that you would do -8 and +8, or you could do
like one side on the other.
You could do -8 and +9, or you could do them a little offset if you wanted to.
Get that Eddie Van Halen thing.
And that was the the quintessential. That, and on the Eventide H3000, the micro pitch shift was the quintessential LA pitch detune stuff. And although the SPX was first.
Interesting.
So it was really about, on the SPX, it was all about that and the symphonic program.
That one sounds great.
And pretty much that's all most people used in that unit. Although some of the other stuff's kind of cool.
Interesting in it.
And then for delays, most people use the PCM42s or Alexicon PCM70 or SDE 3000s or even Yamaha D1500s. That was the most common. And you'd have two mono delays in stereo. So you could set them discrete. And then also there was, part of that sound also was the tri-stereo chorus and or the TC 1210.
Mm-hmm.
DBX compressor often was used, 160. Reverbs, there would still be the Lexicon reverbs, like the PCM. So you'd see like PCM 42s and Lexicon PCM 70s, Eventide H2000s, SPX 90s, and between all of that, you'd get your thing. But it really wasn't so much about the reverb. It was mostly delays were used and the choruses and detunes.
I just got a DBX 160 and realized for the first time, like, oh, that's the sound. Like, after the preamp.
Just the single rack bass, single clean DBX, yeah.
Yeah, and it is totally this guy. Where is he? That one.
Yep, that's it. And if you want, here, go searching for this then. Get a Audio Arts parametric EQ.
Okay.
And use that with your Soldano clean channel and that DBX.
That's the sound, huh?
Well, that's Mike Landau used the Audio Arts EQ to tweak the clean channel to get that sparkle thing. Yep. That, and also a big part of the early stuff was not classic stacks. Duncan hot stacks. The blade, it had like a single blade down the middle of the pickup. It was a stacked single coil.
Oh, Dan Huff had that on his single coils in his neck and middle. Yeah,
and then you could split them and run them in parallel and stuff. A lot of those Tyler Strats had like these series parallel switches and stuff.
Yeah, but that's ugly. That one blade is not a good look.
No, it's not.
But it has a sound, and for that sound, it does it really well. It's almost acoustic-like in nature. Yeah, it's not a good look. Get over the look.
Some of the stuff is the look. I mean, Seymour Duncan writing Seymour Duncan so big across his pickups, that's pretty tough to stomach too. I mean,
I hate that.
You can get them without that writing.
I don't know. Can you?
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to have that.
But you have to special order it. Like,
okay, yeah. So
I mean, if you go to the store.
It's got a Warren D. Martini custom pickup for my. I've changed the pickup in my Luckstone 100 times. Like, it sounded great. I have a Telly with a humbucker in the bridge. Yeah. It sounded fine, but it was kind of classic sounding. And I've always wanted. It has like a Charval neck, so I've always wanted it to be more shreddery. And I've tried like a Bill Lawrence, and that was just like the most weird, insane pickup ever. That's what like Nuno has and Dimebag had.
Yeah,
And
the
just
original
a hi-fi
called?
all treble. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to track down the original Bill and Becky.
Yeah.
So I got this Warren DiMartini pickup because Warren's got this great tone, and that shit is the hottest. I was telling Robert, it's the hottest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like a 18K pickup. Like it's the most metal.
It's something Alnico 2 magnet.
Yeah, it's ballistic.
It's
It's good.
It's an
but
over
it's
one
ballistic.
JB with an Alnico 2 magnet. Pretty sure that's what it is.
Oh,
Does it sound
sounds
good?
real. Yeah, I think so. I was plugging it into software at home, so I just made sure that it worked, and I did an A and B, but I haven't plugged it into an actual amp. I don't know. At some point, no more pickups will be able to be installed into that guitar because I've gone in and out of the screw holes so many times.
And you'll have to have it fixed.
Yeah, I'll just glue it in.
So now you
I'll
have
put the original. I'll go back to the original pickup probably and be like, oh yeah, it was fine the first time.
So let's talk about racks, guitar racks. 'Cause I know you wanted to talk about that, Michael, right?
Yeah, I was kind of just stealing moments here and there.
Yeah,
With Dave.
but
Go
ahead.
Okay, so I saw the other day. You did John Norm's rack too, Dave?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Maybe you just did his mod, his Marshall.
Oh,
Really?
Love.
It says on his website that you did his Marshall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with a BE mod, and he's like, it sounds amazing and it's incredible.
Oh shit!
Are you sure? Because the rack looks like something you do. It had two SDE 3000s.
John Norm.
Yeah, from Europe.
I know John Norum, but I don't recall working for him. I mean, that's possible I did, though. I just don't recall.
Maybe there's an East Coast Dave Friedman that's...
I don't know. It's weird.
It's possible.
Now I got to go look.
Yeah, there's a whole site dedicated to stuff. It's very detailed.
Wow.
It was a nice looking rack. So how did you come up with your which I call like the Dave Friedman delay, because it's been at NAMM every year. Your two SDE 3000. I think it's like a 250 on one side and like a 500-ish on the other side.
That was just commonplace back from the old days. I mean, it just you
Is
would
that
use
Eddie-ish?
delays.
Does Eddie
Yeah,
do that?
absolutely. Yep. You use two discrete delays, and you just set them at whatever times you want to set them at. But generally speaking, to do a ping pong, you set them at half of each other. So 500, 250, or 600 and 300, somewhere in there, 450 and 225.
But that's for like
Do you prefer them?
That's a wet dry wet setup.
Yeah.
Do you prefer it to be exact multiples or like a little off?
Could be a little off. Generally, we do exact multiples, but it could be a little off. I mean, slightly. Like you could just a couple, 503, and
Yeah, otherwise it gets kind of dirty. It gets sloppy.
50. Yeah, it's sloppy. Yeah. I mean, you can do it a few ways. I mean, you can have it where the delays sort of trail to the left or to the right, or ping pong back and forth between the two. Sounds good. You can use any. I mean, the SDE 3000 sound great, but you can use two D1500s. You could use two Lexicon 42s. That's great, also.
You could set your DD500 to stereo.
There you go.
Now, you could set your DD500 to stereo, but you can't use the vintage digital patch.
I do.
Yeah, but it doesn't have two separate delay times.
That's what I've got it set up with two separate delay times.
On the vintage digital patch.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's newer software than mine.
No, this is when I first got it.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I'll send you the link offline of how I got that set up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure it's not. But
Okay. Well, let's just say you're the expert, so I'm going to say you're probably right.
Sure I had to go through this with Jerry Cantrell on his DD500, and we had to use another patch in there.
Okay, I'll have to check.
And then you have to do it, you have to have two. Just like the originals.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. I might be wrong. Probably am. So what other racks have you worked on, Dave?
Well, let me jump in with that.
Like, I can't.
Do you remember what was the first time you met Eddie Van Halen? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The recording of the very first time. Hold on a second. Must have been the recording when they were recording the Fuck record, Andy Johns, at his studio.
Wow.
I think I delivered something there from Andy Brower's at the time. And he helped me pull the cabinet out of the car or the truck.
Were you shedding? Like, what was your...
Oh, well, let me give you a hand.
Yeah, were you just dying? Because you're driving up there, you're knowing like, oh my God, it would be so great if I actually meet him.
It was pretty cool, I got to say, it was pretty cool. And then I think during that, I think my friend who I worked with had started working for him, Matt Bruck. And right before that record, or just right at that record. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it was. I remember that was the first time I actually saw him play in front of me. Which is
what was that? What was he? Was he plugged in or not plugged in?
Yeah, plugging in, yeah. I think early on I helped him out with something and patching something in with an old Bradshaw he had or something. I don't quite remember. But then it was years later before I actually did real work for him. But I remember being there and the recording of that record. It was a Soldano head into a old slant 4x12 that Andy Brower had that had 75 watt Celestians in it.
Those are the ones that are kind of the poo-poo, no? 75 watt? There's just poo-poo Celestians.
Correct.
The 75 watts that are in all the rentals.
But with the Soldano amp, the 75 sounded really good.
Oh.
So Soldano's sort of hairy sounding, It's like, I'm not talking the preamp. The preamp's different than the head. The head's kind of hairy sounding. It's a great sounding. It's great sounding, but I think the cleaner speakers did it justice in some respects. They liked that better. They tried a whole bunch of cabinets. They liked that better. He later bought that cabinet from the rental company.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, it was nothing. It was nothing special. It was just sounded great on that recording with that amp at the time.
And
I remember Andy Johns.
Great sounding recording.
Andy Johns. That's the only time I was around Andy Johns. That was a treat.
Was he cool?
Oh God, he was super cool. Might have been drunk, but he was super cool.
Whatever it takes.
He was English,
Right.
Yeah. I did a live record. I mixed a live record for John Syxes, who was the guitar player for Whitesnake.
Right.
Which was like that was going back to the beginning for me. So my production company manager was John Syxes' tour manager, and he's since passed away. So John was going to go to Europe. No, sorry, John was going to Japan to do like 4 dates, and he wanted to record it and put out a live album, which came out as called Bad Boys Live. So he had Derek Sherinian, Tommy Aldrich, Marco Mendoza on bass,
right,
and then him. And
this was later, right?
This is later. This is like
2000s.
Yeah. And Syxes had been away for a long time.
Yeah. I remember that.
And so this is like right after I had left sort of the pop production stuff. I'm like, maybe I'll get into like some touring kind of stuff. And then I realized really quickly, like, touring sucks. It's the worst. But so Sykes had just bought a Pro Tools rig, and it wasn't tested, and we take it to Japan, and we set it up, and the whole reason he's doing this tour is to get a live album out of it. And the first show, I hit record and fail. I'm like, oh shit, they're already in the middle of the first song. Record, fail, and I'm like, this isn't gonna work. Something was up. And if anyone knows like record production, like Pro Tools, even now crashes twice a day. But then it was just so unstable. I mean, it was like you never knew what you were getting. And hard drives weren't that fast, and it got shipped over and stuff. So I was like, forget it. I'm just gonna sit here and watch this show. And then it got back to him that we didn't get a recording of this first show. And it was one of those other surreal moments where I'm sitting in a hotel in Japan. I'm getting read the Riot Act from John Syxes, like my hero, and he's ripping me a new asshole. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a very interesting scenario. I also got read the Riot Act from Barry Manilow too, which was he had written a song and he asked us, he's like, just take it apart and give it back to me. And we were like, great, we'll rewrite this whole thing for you, because we thought, we're 20 years old and we thought we were really smart. We gave it back and he just ripped the shit out of us too. That's one of those things. I don't know. Kids today don't get that experience of getting the shit kicked out of them by the elders. And I think it's important to have that. It puts you in a little bit of perspective. And
you mean the millennial thing?
Yeah, totally. But after that with Sykes, it's like, you know what? They were going out. And I'm like, I'm going to make sure this Pro Tools rig works, and spent all night making sure it works. And then we got the recording, and I mean, he's another one of those like ridiculous players. That's like
crazy player.
Yeah,
amazing.
The strongest hands I've ever seen. Like he had we needed tape, like 2-inch tape, to recall the loops for his Blue Murder stuff. He had which I think is just genius record. That first Blue Murder album is amazing. So there's a song Jelly Roll that has a loop on it and like an acoustic guitar. So we needed to pull that off of the 2-inch tape. So he pulled out the tape, and I was like, well, let's not just throw the tape anywhere. Let's wrap it around a coffee can. And he single-handedly took a coffee can and like ripped the lid off of it with bare hands. And and he's a huge guy. He's just humongous. It was very intimidating, like to be around. I don't know. Maybe you found this, Dave, like being around a rock star, like a bona fide rock star. Yeah. Like it's a weird thing. Like they're not normal people. They're
no. There's a whole psychology to the whole thing. And everyone is different, which is really interesting. So you have to learn. One thing I've learned from working with artists is you need to learn really quickly and be able to learn really fast what not to say. You have to be careful with your words. You got to choose them wisely, because some are touchier than others, and some are great, some aren't, and some are asses. But hey, you just learn what camp is which way and how to be and how to behave, and just don't offer your opinion up. That's a big thing. Here's the basic thing. Don't offer your opinion unless asked. This is you don't go, this is what I think you should do.
Yeah.
That doesn't start well. You have to be asked first. You have to be in their in their circle, so to speak. Mm-hmm. There's a whole psychology behind this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So you have to be careful what you say.
Yeah. I stopped going out of my way to meet my heroes. It's too stressful. I did meet Lukather backstage at a Christmas KLOS Christmas party, and he was the nicest guy ever. He was so gracious and sweet. Yeah. And Sykes was super nice too, but it was like we were on a deadline, and I was mixing for hours and hours a live album that just like on a broke down Pro Tools rig with no auto tune. Not for him. I think he actually has perfect pitch, but the background singers were just like, whoof.
Really?
You just pull those down lower.
Yeah.
Mix low.
Yeah.
Bury and delay and reverb and mix low.
Yeah. Well, I was on a half-ass Pro Tools rig with like the DSP. You got to be careful. Like I could use one delay or a reverb, or you got to choose wisely.
Not like today.
Hey,
No.
Robert Baker wants to know, Michael, what DAW do you use most often?
I'm fully Logic Pro. I'm really fast on it. I used to be super fast on Pro Tools, but there was a point where I needed to upgrade. There was a big OS upgrade between 9 and 10, and it was going to cost a bunch of money, so I went native. And it's hard to argue with, price versus performance for Logic. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. What interface do you use?
I use a Symphony system. Let me see. I don't know if you'll be able to see it through here, if it's blurry or not. So I have a machine room over here. I didn't bring the keys. Maybe you can see through the wall.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So in here, there's a rack of computers and stuff. So I have two Apogee Symphonies, and that is because every one of the outboard gear, which is over here, is on its own I/O. So I could just, I didn't want to have anything where I had to do a patch bay, because if I'm recalling a different mix 3 times a day and jumping between different things, I need to have just hit open on the mix and it shows up. And I go, oh, okay, I need to turn on my Manley EQ, or I need to turn on this compressor or whatever. And if I have to deal with patch cables, I'll screw it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just too many things happening at once.
Yeah, it makes it quick and easy.
Yeah, so and more I'm just in the box now, because it's faster, and I got better too. Every year it's like when I started doing the Forza 7 soundtrack, which was all sort of rock songs, like sort of garagey, indie, bluesy, soul rock songs. My mixing had to get really good, really fast, which was always something I was into and I liked it. But like, you just have to know, like, okay, how do bass sound, how does drum sound, and all that kind of stuff. How do I get this particular kind of guitar sound? Like, I can't use most of the stuff that I do for fun in a lot of the work stuff. There's certain tonalities that I'm allowed to do, and it changes every like 3 or 4 years. Like at one point it was very like Led Zeppelin Kashmir, and then it was totally Jack White, and then it was right now it's more synthy stuff. So you have to sort of disguise the guitar and sneak it in as sort of cool as you can. And the music supervisors that I work with and stuff, they know everything that's like cool. So you can't fake it with them, and I can't like sneak in a Def Leppard kind of thing. Even though that's like on the weekend, that's all I'll go listen to Def Leppard. That's like, I just have to turn that side off and to like the real dirty stuff.
All right.
That's cool. So do you find that your work mostly comes from word of mouth? Like reputation?
Well, it is. The movie stuff is a really small industry, and it gets smaller. And, like Disney just bought Fox, so there's only a handful of studios, and there's Netflix, Hulu, and stuff. We've been doing it for like 15 years. So we'll get calls and say like, hey, we're working on this. Can you help us make this cooler or make this bigger or something like that? I mean, you can't like make David Bowie cooler, but you can take it from A to C and add some emotion to it. And that's what it is. And whether that's adding like some sub bass or some extra drums or some strings or whatever it is, some extra little guitar stuff. Like I was working on a track that had a Pearl Jam thing yesterday, and like that was super cool because I got to like play like real guitar on top of it.
Mm-hmm. That's always fun.
The best was someone had called a couple years ago, and they wanted this is the dream call. They're like, we want like a Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner. Okay. So I had my B100. I turned it on 10, and the neighbor from across the street, it happened to be on like the 4th of July, and the neighbor across the street came over. This is a soundproof like building basically. And he's like, "Oh shit, man, that's awesome." Yeah, 100 watts is uncontainable. You just can't. You can't contain it.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a beast.
Especially on a Strat. 100 watts with a Strat will cut through anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like lasers.
That's why I always say, like, when Philip Sayce is across the street, he cuts through all the walls like lasers with that Strat.
Yes.
The amps and the Octavia and the Univibe and all that stuff. He's just plain as day. It sounds like the walls are crumbling.
It's frightening. He always, he's so gracious and generous. He's like, "Oh, you can play guitar here," and he'll give me his guitar, which is you'll see later, Marc. But so he's got a vintage Strat. I think it's a 63, and he has super acidic sweat. So like literally, if I give him my telly, and he can play it for 30 seconds, and I'll get it back, and the next day I'll be like, it's like 2 years worth of grime. Yeah, the strings are rusted. It's incredible.
Lukather, same way.
Oh, is he like that?
Yep, acid hands.
Yeah, yes, totally. It's the craziest thing because I could have strings on my stuff for years.
Yeah,
like over and over. But yeah, I forget what I was saying. A little too much tequila, but
no, you were saying Philip Sayce.
Oh, his 63. So
yeah.
He's got his action. He plays so fast, but his action is really high, and it almost feels unaligned with the guitar. So if you doubled whatever high action you thought was high,
It's
but he's
hot.
got super big frets. They're like bass frets.
Wow.
And it's really easy to play, but he'll hand it to me, and it's got a super reverb that's on 10. Also, like, sort of like a Dumble-ish kind of thing. He has a signature amp with this dude in Europe, and a Cesar Diaz Princeton, which is like Cesar Diaz was Steve Ray Vaughan's tech and Keith Richards, and he helped dial in Steve Ray Vaughan's tone. So he'd take a Princeton, put in like a Fender Twin transformer, and put in an EV and do his other mojo to it. So it basically projects like a laser beam, and it's incredibly loud, and about 150 pounds in a tiny little like Fender Princeton package.
Mm-hmm.
All of those running at once, and he's like, here's a Strat, just go and play. And it's
And a tube screamer, of course.
Oh yeah, and a fuzz face with both knobs on maximum. And for me, it's like, this is not, I'm not used to this sort of thing. I'm fragile. I'm a fragile man. It's scary when you're at that kind of level.
What size strings does he play? Big fat ones?
No, I would guess 10s.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 11s, but I think maybe 10s. He does squirt down with the like what is it called? Fingeries.
Oh yeah.
It's just a constant joke every time he's over. Fingeries is up.
Yeah.
I never really got used to using that stuff. I tried it, and it was kind of like,
it's just like slippery. It's like oil.
Yeah.
Oof.
I
remember I had a friend that used it, and growing up, and yeah. In fact, that friend was the guy that was in the background of that Jakey Lee video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Doug. He used to use that fingeries on his Charvel he had, and it was just like, wow, yeah, it's like grease.
Yeah.
It's
so slippery. I mean, you could do that like George Lynch vibrato.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. You put your fingers fly right off the strings.
Yeah.
Action is higher, so hey, maybe it's fine.
Maybe. Yeah.
I just saw someone asked about the Up From the Ashes John Norum sound, which amp would get that. I don't know. Do you guys know that album? Don Dokken had a solo album.
No.
I do not, actually. I don't know.
So good.
Really?
It's, yeah. So he pulled John Norum and this other dude, Billy. I'm gonna blank on Billy White, who is this Texas guy, and it is a really good Dokken album, basically.
Really?
But the tones are killer. And to answer the question, I think just a BE100 kind of gets there. Maybe a Les Paul, and great playing.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So I have a question for Dave too. Like you had mentioned in other podcasts that you liked. There's a punk side to you. Like I totally get that, and I think that's one of the things that sort of like I like about your products and amps. Like they're refined, but there's always a little dangerous thing that's a little wild about them, and is really rock. What were you listening to when you were a kid? Like in that pivotal time, that 13 to 16 kind of thing.
You know, the funny thing is, let's see. So my friend Marty, who owns a guitar store in Michigan now called Motor City Guitar, great guitar store if you ever guys want to buy anything. Unbelievable selection of stuff at that store. Crazy. Like the amount of pedals that are at that store is, I mean, I've never seen so many, ever, anywhere. So he started playing guitar first, and, you know, his family, he had an older sister that was sort of dabbling in a band, sort of, and that loved, like, old rock music and, you know, Led Zeppelin and all that stuff in the 70s. And so probably the first records that I owned as a kid would have been... let's see. I could be wrong here, but it would have been. It's kind of disjointed too. Would have been Elton John's greatest hits, Toys in the Attic, Aerosmith, and there might have been some Blondie, and there might have been some other horrible things like Sean Cassidy or some crap like that. But like, I don't. Sean Cassidy, David Cassidy, I don't know, something like that. But those are the Elton John and the Toys in the Attic were, I think, some of my first records I had.
So did Aerosmith hit you with the guitar where it's like I remember a vivid dream of having like touching an electric guitar and not knowing what it was like. Like what was your moment where it was like,
maybe,
oh
you
my
know,
God.
the Aerosmith record was that, Led Zeppelin, early stuff. But what happened was there was that early sort of 70s stuff that I started to get into, but then my friend and I got into really like heavy thrash metal music. And what I mean like heavy, I mean I'm talking like, you know, at the time, the more heavy and sort of satanic or crazy, buck the norm sort of music you could find, the better. So like, you know, things like Venom and like Anthrax and
were you into Testament?
Metallica, not so much Testament.
I was big into Testament.
Bands like Raven and bands like Saxon.
There's a
bands
band called
deep.
Death.
They're King Merciful Fate.
Wow.
You know, Manowar. All these crazy, heavy, almost satanic metal bands.
Wow.
Or you know, satanic. I don't think that was really the deal, but you know, called at the time. You know, really, really heavy for a while. That was the first sort of stage. Although
before that part, my first concert was The Who, 1981.
Oh, that's a great first concert.
I started with the classic, then got to this really heavy stage. And then that slowly morphed kind of more into the
then Van Halen all of a sudden, you know, and then it got into other like sort of hair metal and different things like that after I got kind of out of the super heavy stuff. But it was like all over the map. So it was all from the classic stuff through, and a lot of the early thrash, like I'm talking about, was punk based. You know, a lot of respects. You look at some of that, it is punk based a little bit. You know, there's elements of it in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got into, you know, the later 80s and the, you know, the mid 80s and stuff with, you know, I was looking at a concert database of Joe Louis Arena, which is probably where I saw most of the concerts I ever saw. And I was looking at this concert database and I was just going down the list. And I go, oh yeah, saw that. Judas Priest, yeah, Iron Maiden, yep, check down the list.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, like everything from 1981 through the time I moved, 1987, I probably saw that came through Detroit. That was hard rock or metal.
It's great your parents let you go. I remember going to a festival with my older friend that drove. When I was really young, my friend Marty and I went with this guy named Mike. And he drove, and, you know, the festival was, you know, had like Ozzy and Quiet Riot and Triumph and all this stuff. And we slept in the car, and, you know, all this stuff, you know. So it was cool. I mean, I saw all those bands when in Detroit. And if anyone knows anything about Detroit, it's the best place, period, to see a rock concert. Just great
Is
fans.
it the fans?
I was gonna say
It's the fans.
Yeah, it's the fans. Yeah.
It's the fans. It's just like it's like when you see a show in Detroit, it's like the fans are so into it. You just you get this feeling from them, you know, from the audience. The energy from the audience alone is just makes it just bigger than it is, you know. Yeah, they're drunk. They're getting in fights. You know, it's like, you know, it's they're all drinking. It's all a mess.
It's like going to a Philadelphia Eagles game.
And I've seen recent shows in Detroit in recent years. It's the same still to this day.
Wow.
And it's not like LA shows at all.
LA shows are tame, right? People are sitting down.
It's nothing like it at all.
Yeah.
It's like these people are in it. They're going out. It's the show. They're going to see their band they love, and they're drinking, and they're having a good time. Say sporting events are the same way there. It's just like, you know, it would be the difference of saying a sporting event in LA versus seeing a sporting event in New York.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, go see a football game in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Bunch of drunk, disorderly people.
Yeah, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Yeah. So it's I was fortunate to actually see shows there. I think I remember seeing Black Sabbath with Ian Gillan singing.
Oh wow!
On that at Cobo Arena in Detroit. Cobo, the famous Cobo Arena where Kiss recorded their live stuff and a bunch of other bands.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I took my family to see the Tigers play the Angels.
Oh yeah, at the Tiger Stadium there, yeah.
Yeah, a couple years ago, and we were the only Angels fans. My son is huge Mike Trout fan, and this is part of my wife's family is from Detroit, so I have a very soft spot for Detroit. And then all the fans around started yelling at Mike Trout to give my son a baseball because he was wearing an Angels jersey. Like that doesn't happen in LA and stuff.
No.
And they were taunting Mike Trout like, "Hey man, don't you know your fan is right here?" And he came back and he gave him a ball.
Really?
Like,
oh, that's killer.
I was like, that is amazing.
Wow.
So that really like planted a nice seed for Detroit.
Beautiful stadium, huh?
Oh, it's amazing. And you just walk and hop on the little monorail and you go back.
Yeah, it's great.
Get some hot dogs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You had Coney's, didn't you?
I did it because I'm into A/B tests. I had both. I had the what is it called, American
and Lafayette.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I had both hot dogs.
What'd you like better?
They're both great. I don't know. I'm from LA. I don't care. The hot dog with chili on it. It's great.
The right answer is Lafayette.
I was going to say Lafayette's probably better, yeah. Hey, we got
Although you will get Detroiters that will argue this point.
Well, they both have been there for whatever, 30, 40, 50 years.
They used to be owned by the same family.
Oh.
It used to be two brothers that were pissed off at each other, so they opened a restaurant next to each other.
Like Nikes and Adidas.
Yeah. Now, the original family still owns American, but the other brother at one time sold Lafayette off to the employees. No, it's Lafayette.
Interesting.
So it's like employee owned, or the employees now are the fat cats?
Employee owned.
Huh.
That's cool.
So
that was great. I love Detroit.
I've never been.
My mother-in-law my mother-in-law is German. Her husband, my father-in-law, was born in Detroit. He was on 8 Mile. He was born on 8 Mile or grew up there. Whatever the movie one was.
Yeah.
Whatever mile that is.
Yeah.
So they got me this Detroit City shirt, and they got me 2 of them. So, and I'm not like, I only have 6 shirts. If you watch my videos, you'll see the same shirt recycle over and over. So it's often Detroit City across my chest.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, you should go again. It's even changed more since then.
God.
Since when you went. That was a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Bustling.
Yeah. Yeah, the food scene's unbelievable there now.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I need to check it out.
I can't like honestly there I could find 5 or 6 unbelievable.
All I hear is chips.
Oh, sorry. It's not chips, it's donuts.
What are you eating?
I'm so sorry. I'm eating donuts from the shop.
And then I was saying you can find 5 or 6 or 7 downtown unbelievable restaurants that'll blow your mind. I have a hard time thinking of 1 or 2 here.
They have we have Chinatown. There's like a Middle Eastern town or Indian?
Yeah, Dearborn. Mm-hmm.
What is it? Indian or Middle Eastern?
No, Middle Eastern. It's the largest Middle Eastern population in North America, maybe, or something.
Mm.
The huge Middle Eastern population.
I bet the food.
Unbelievable food there too.
I bet.
Yeah, and also the Chinese food has real egg rolls.
Oh.
Anyone from Marc will probably know what that is.
Yeah.
It's not like Panda Express.
I miss real Chinese food.
You know the real egg rolls with the big egg rolls rolled in the actual, not the thin paper, like the
breading.
Yeah, and then the sweet and sour sauce that's kind of clear that has little red flakes in it, and bean sprouts inside with every. Oh God. It doesn't exist. You can't buy them. You can't get them in LA. There's 1 or 2 places that sort of make them, kind of, not really.
Really?
Yeah. Can't get them here.
Yeah, Chinese food sucks down here too.
Or 2, but but in Detroit, I found a place in Dearborn actually that is a cash-only little Chinese restaurant with red vinyl booths that hasn't been updated since 1970 something, and spot on. The egg rolls are just like spot on. You're just like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I grew up with.
That's so funny you bring this up because my kids and we still talk about this LA vacation that we went to LA. We landed on Christmas Eve, and we went to, was it Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? Maybe it was Christmas Day, and we went to this Szechuan restaurant, which was right in off, maybe Ventura Boulevard or whatever it was. It was right in Hollywood. Or downtown in LA, and it was the worst piece of shit. Oh my God! And the waitress was basically saying to us after tonight I'm quitting. I'm never coming back.
The only place you can get decent Chinese food in Los Angeles in San Gabriel Valley.
Really?
Yeah. San Gabriel Valley, tons. I mean, it's a whole Asian population that it's just, like, traditional Szechuan and
there you
go. Whatever style you want.
You can get great Korean food.
You can downtown.
Yep.
Little Koreatown.
Yep.
Yep. You can get fantastic.
All I know is
you get great Thai food everywhere. Like you find anywhere in your area, you can find a great place.
I've been jonesing for Roscoe's Chicken since NAMM. I mean, I went there.
In a long time.
Waffles?
Yeah, I had the fried chicken and waffles, and I was like in frickin' heaven. And every once in a while, I'll be scrolling through my phone, and I'll see that picture from NAMM, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait for next year.
Michael, have you ever been there?
Oh yeah, many times.
It's great, right?
That's I am a waffles chicken. You put the little hot sauce.
Oh,
that's the best.
it was amazing. I can't wait to go back next year.
It's good. It's good.
Good stuff.
It is.
Hey, there's a question in the chat I want to get to.
Got everyone chiming in about Detroit places.
Oh yeah.
Buddy's Pizza.
Sorry, Dave. JMP2204 Rocker says, question for Dave, are PTIMVs only intended for non-master volume amps? That's what I thought.
I don't know what that means, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Post-phase inverter master volume is mostly intended for that, although they're not that great. I mean, they're okay. They kind of, what they do is, when you have them down low, they take the negative feedback loop out. It's useless. Your presence doesn't work. And by doing that, it tends to be brighter down low, and they don't work that well, to be honest. I mean, I don't think they sound okay. They don't, but I've tried many designs, and I've always come back to a more traditional master. I've tried that over the years, and it just doesn't. It's okay. You're better off with an attenuator than a master volume amp.
Gotcha. He said I've seen people on the forums doing this mod on 2203s and 2204s. Doesn't it?
Well, you can do that, and it will add more gain, so to speak. That was the famous Rockstar mod that he sort of developed. But to be honest, it's kind of a less than perfect science, meaning the lower the volume goes, down really low, it sounds pretty cool. Right in the middle on the post-phase inverter master, it sounds kind of weird. As you get up louder, it starts to sound better as the negative feedback loop comes back in. So it's kind of inconsistent in where the taper is on the master. It's I don't choose to use it. I prefer an attenuator.
Okay. Here's a question. Cars in depth. Dave, would a Western Electric 300B tubes make a good guitar amp?
Probably not. Never really been used for guitar amps ever. They were mostly hi-fi stuff.
Have you played through any of those like projector amps? Like the ones where they take a projector and they mod it into...
I have.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're fun. They look great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
super cool. It's good just to have in the studio, just to look at. Even if you don't use. Yeah. I mean, it looks cooler and shit. Sometimes the cool factor outweighs everything else.
But once you plug it in,
amp, though, sometimes like
looks a lot better than a Kemper.
Yeah, that's true.
Although I see one behind you, Michael.
I know he's got one there. He makes profiles.
He just hit it. That's funny. That's what I understand. You make you make killer profiles, Dave said.
I try to. You know what? With the rack stuff, I find it hard to dial in like a great tone. So, but that's where like when I was 13 to 15, like it was all rack stuff. And now when I look at it, it's like, that's kind of silly. Like it's almost bringing like a full mixing console for your amp. Like it's humongous, this stuff that you're bringing. So for me, it's just like if there's a way to hit a like Apple S kind of like save that sort of thing. And like I used the Kemper today, like I was telling you on that Pearl Jam thing. It sounds good. It's not ever great. It's sometimes you'll luck out. It'll be great. It's just not the same. Sometimes when I get bummed out on my playing and I'm like, ugh, my playing is the same, and you plug into a real tube amp, you could play metal, blues, rootsy stuff without changing a knob on a tube amp, and it's all there. It just bends to your will. With the Kemper, you're like, well, sometimes the planets align and it sounds great. It always it can sound good. It's not quite the same, but it's fun. And I like not having to plug in 20 cables and try and dial in the Bogner Axis or the Bogner Fish to that one time I had it sounding really good. So I could save that. Be like, oh, that's cool. That kind of scratches that itch. And it serves a purpose. But when I'm working up a track, if the fundamental element is the guitars, to me, it's got to be a real speaker and a microphone first. I could overdub with the Kemper. Like, overdubs are fine. It'll squeeze in. I could put harmony guitars, like the extra little parts and whatever's, but it just does not in the software. Like, to me, it's a bummer when someone puts out an album and it's software or it's all Kemper. Like, there's people that is like, oh, I was really interested in the album they were going to put out, and then I found out, like, oh, it was all software. Like, there's a certain amount of like importance that emotionally connects when you're capturing the air with a microphone. That happens, and there's no way around it. My plugin, it'll sound pretty good, but I guarantee the emotional connection to capturing it with a little bit of air, even if it doesn't sound as good, is better, and it'll last longer. And that's what I deal with every day. Cause like every piece of music that I sell to a movie or to a trailer is a competition. So there's God knows how many other people pitching for the same piece of music. So I could go the cheap route and just do it quickly, and sometimes have to. But if I know that this is important to me, it's important to them, it's got to be the real thing. And it really does make a difference. And emotionally and the longevity. And it's just, I don't know. I could go on forever about that. I love the Kemper. I think it's a cool tool and it's really fun. But in no way does it emotionally or like connect the same way almost the worst tube amp you can get would connect in the same way.
Yep.
It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, you got great stuff behind you. When you plug it in, I'm sure you never go like plug it in and go like, I don't know why I'm so bummed. Like this whole day I'm so bummed. The Kemper, you could spend a whole day and be like, "Ooh, I'm bummed. I spent the whole day trying to get a tone. Like, I better buy some more stuff." Sometimes it works. Sometimes you find the cool thing. Like right. I had a cool profile that I had done of a Bogner Ecstasy that was like, that worked fine. That was great. But it was also on top of a track with strings and extra percussion, and it was a little extra thing, and it was cool. It's just it's not the same thing. I'm caught in between two worlds because I'm promoting this one thing that's like, yeah, they sound like the preamps, but if you like the preamp, you should get the preamp because that will really make you happy.
Right.
That's my take on it.
Yeah. Someone asked earlier what your thoughts are on the modern preamps. I think they're all great from what I've, obviously the Synergy stuff is great, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I haven't heard the Synergy stuff. I heard the original Egnator / Randall stuff. Bruce's stuff I thought sounded really good. The Randall stuff, less good. I'm assuming that the Synergy stuff sounds really good. I haven't heard a lot of demos that sound great of the Synergy stuff. I just there aren't a lot of demos of it.
It sounds the same. Like I did it, a lot of it, and it sounds the same as the real amp. You know, it sounds AB to the real thing. It's within a couple % of what the real amp is.
Yeah, you know what? I forget his name, but the Metropolis guy.
Mm-hmm.
George Metropolis.
He did it. Yeah, he did a AB, and it was like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
The problem with every preamp thing is like you could take the preamp, so you got the preamp and you've got the module, and someone could take it and put it into the worst sounding power amp.
Yeah, and that's
which is at least 50%. I feel like 60, 70% of the tone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to make your preamp sound like shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's a lot of that out there. If you could plug a mediocre preamp into a great power amp, and it's going to sound pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But it's like, Dave, like, I found, like, even with something like the Soldano, which is it's a great sounding preamp,
Mm-hmm.
it really matters how hard or the level you're coming from the preamp into the power amp. Like,
yeah, yeah, it depends. Well, it sort of depends on what power amp it is, though. Again, that may not be the case with everything, but it sort of depends on what power amp you're going into. I mean, you know, the classic thing for the Soldano preamp is an old H&H power amp, which wasn't tubes at all.
right. I've never heard one. Are they clean? Or what do they sound like?
Yeah, no, they're clean. But it had a sound. The H&H with the Soldano had a sound. I mean, Luke that's what he used, and that sounded great.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Mike Landau in the early days. You know, it sounded great. And often later, it didn't sound as good when he changed it. He changed to a different power amp, and then it didn't sound as good as the H&H, actually. H&H was a great sounding amp.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. It's cool. It's a beast, but it's cool.
I just need to get a napkin. Can I just spilt a little beer? So, but I personally, I've got the Synergy running through the BE100. You know, I've got the Syn one.
Well, there you go.
And it sounds fantastic. So, you know, so I don't have any problems with that. But yeah, that's why I was asking about whether a Synergy can run through like the MOS valve and how would it sound.
Sounds good.
Oh, you have this. I see there. It's the single.
Yeah, I've got the Syn one up there,
Mm.
and I run that through the BE100.
That's cool.
And it sounds great. It sounds awesome. You should try it. If you haven't tried the Synergy stuff, you should try it.
Yeah, I got to do that. I sold my diesel to get my BE100 Dirty Shirley 100. But then they came out with a diesel preamp for a Synergy, and I thought, like, well, that'd be a nice little, like,
Yeah, it sounds good.
compromise.
Yeah, the Savage. I have one on the way, I think. Yeah, it's cool. Let me grab a napkin. Dave, I think there was a question about...
Someone asked, there's a whole bunch of
go ahead.
questions.
You take it. I'll be right back.
Someone asked if I was ever going to make a preamp, and yes. Answer is
What?
yes.
What?
there's a preamp. But it'd probably be pedal form.
Oh.
But it will be a preamp. And we shall see what the feature set will be in that. But it's coming. It's sort of my answer to tube direct guitar.
Mm.
So
Well, and I will say on direct guitar side, the Mike No Mo sounds really good. It's interesting. Like I found it. Okay, so you run through the Mike No Mo, and you've got your signal, and I found a little bit of EQ makes it sound actually like legit good. Like it's killer sounding. I don't know how hard it is to like build in EQ into other stuff, but it like whatever you've got going on there, if you could get a little, what I found was a little more presence in it, really sort of like lifted the tone.
Yeah. Are you using the darker position?
Yes, and because you had mentioned that,
Darker sounds better.
I liked it better.
And then if you add
there,
presence
after, yes,
then it's good. Really good.
Because my first impression on the runts was to use the Axis center.
Yeah.
Because it's brighter.
Yeah.
But if you use the edge center, which is darker, and then you add your own EQ, it just sounds good.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. It's cool.
Really good. But you're stuck also with like you have to. The sound's still going to be coming out of your cabinet in this current form.
Yes.
Like so, if you're not a live guy. You have to figure out a way to load down your signal at that point too.
Here's a question. Locking Nut said, if the speaker in a 412 is failing, will it mess up the power section of your amp head? Most likely not, because you still have a load on your amp head. It's still presenting it with some sort of load, so you won't harm it.
I have a question.
Kemper in 4x12. Thoughts? Well, sounds like a Kemper into a 412. I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that one.
Okay, so let me address. I'm gonna alter that into a 112. So, Celestion sent me one of their full range speakers.
Yeah.
F12 or something like that.
I have one sitting in a box.
Yeah, and it sounds really good. It's in a 112 cabinet. It sounds like the Kemper. You know what? It sounds like my studio monitors. So, and it sounds robust. I could turn it up to God knows what, like insane volumes, and it'll sound like the Kemper coming out of the studio monitors. When I just went straight into the power amp and straight into a vintage 30, it removed like a veil, like a layer off of it. So I felt more immediate to the tone, but I lost the ability to control whether I was miking up a 110, a 112, 412, whatever it was. It's not a studio monitor anymore. I'm getting the tone of the speaker. So, I mean, any 412, you could just alter the tone of the Kemper into that. But I'm going to also go back to my earlier comments about, like, go get yourself, like, a JJ Junior or a mini Dirty Shirley and plug into a 412 and A/B it to any profile you get. And then see, we'll judge the smile on your face after it. We'll measure it.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a big difference. Robert Baker had asked what my favorite and your favorite, Michael, Friedman amps are that you own. I'll let you go first.
I go back and forth because I'm a total sucker for the Dirty Shirley stuff because it's got an insane amount of bottom end. And I'm lucky Dave built me this 100-watt Dirty Shirley BE100. So, like, literally the bass knob is on 2, and it's a ton of bottom end on the Dirty Shirley side. But again, like I was talking about for trailer stuff, like to try and get something different and try and get something cool, it's kind of pushing into the weird Jack White and Muse and that kind of stuff to where you're not doing, unfortunately, I can't do like a Brown sound kind of thing. They reject that. So this kind of like, it's got presence, but it also has a huge bottom end. And I don't have to use a bass guitar. Like the Dirty Shirley circuit is the closest to what I would like. That was built for me. Like, I have a mini Dirty Shirley at home. That's what I play through at home, and I plug in, and I'm always happy. Like, you can play anything through it. Put a pedal in it, and it'll get you to Van Halen. Any pedal, just to get a little extra boost, depending on the pickups. And that's it. And at work, I mostly use the 100-watt Dirty Shirley side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. For me, it's the BE100, although it's a real close second to the Pink Taco Wildwood edition. That amp.
So I haven't played the Pink Taco. That's one of the Pink Taco and the Naked are the few times every time I go over there to Friedman, I'm like, hey man, do you have a Pink Taco? Do you have a Naked? Nope.
You should hear what I did today. I did an amp for someone who wanted. He got a pink taco, and actual pink one, and he wanted a switch that kind of gave it a Dirty Shirley vibe. So it was sort of a hybrid. So you had it's sort of similar to your other amp, but it sort of had both.
In like a 20-watt zone.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Super. Yeah, it was better than I did it and I'm like, wow, this is cool.
That might be an option.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the Pink Taco Wildwood edition is a super cool amp. Great stuff.
Hey Dave, did Joe Bonamassa ever take a Dirty Shirley from you?
Joe Bonamassa had a 100-watt Dirty Shirley.
He did. Okay, so similar to what I have on my site.
He used it for a while, and then I think his tech owns it now. Yeah.
And the EV speakers, I don't know if any of you have used EV speakers. They're weird. Coming from a Celestion 30, it is like, it's like pickles and oranges.
Yeah, exactly.
It is weird.
Yeah. But can be good.
Oh, totally. Like Philip Sayce will come over and we'll be demoing up some new songs. And his amps sound like shit through the vintage 30. And I'll switch over to, I have an EV in 412, and it sounds perfect.
Yeah, so there you go. EVs were a huge thing for a long time in LA with the little 112 cabinets that every studio guitar player had. It was a big, EV 112.
With the ported ported bottom.
Yep. Yeah, it was cool. It's fine. It was a sound.
It doesn't sound like you're in love with that sound.
No, it's a sound. No, it's cool. It's it's not for every amp. Actually, EVs with a Fender amp sound great. So that just whatever you like.
Marc, were you ever into the like Lukather, Landau, Michael Thompson, Dan Huff world?
Not really. Only until recently I got into. Steve Lukather, yes, but yeah, the Landau stuff, no. I just recently I had some friends who sent me some stuff, and I was like, oh, this is great. But no, why do you ask?
I'm just curious because those are the quintessential rack guys.
Yeah,
they were the LA studio guys that. Growing up.
Dan Huff, Steve Lukather, and Mike Landau.
Yeah, those were the dudes.
Mm-hmm.
It was those were the guys on the pop side. So it was I had these Amy Grant records, and then I had Disincarnate and heavy, super heavy stuff on the other side. And to me, it was all the same because it's oh, look at this. This is such a good guitar player over there. You just have to sift through the sappy pop song,
right,
and get to the solo. But
yeah, no, I mean, when I love Toto, clearly, when that stuff came out. So I was, but and I never really, back then, I really knew anything about Steve Lukather until I started really playing guitar. So, but no, that wasn't my thing, the rack thing and everything. But I know some friends who were totally into it.
Someone just said Jakey Lee used EVs with his Marshalls. Is that right?
Not that I know of.
That didn't sound EV-ish.
Doesn't sound right. Zach did.
Zach did.
Zach did.
What is Mike's string gauge preference? Rocamp wants to know.
I like 10s. So my main studio guitars, which I play almost everything for work on, is either my Friedman red one with the P90s. I had to switch out the bridge pickup because it was a regular bridge pickup with a single coil hum. So I put in a Lawler, which didn't sound as good, but it has no hum, so I could get away with it. So that's one of them. My Les Paul standard, and my Telly, which is a no-caster reissue, with also Lawler noiseless pickups. And my Les Paul has Lawler Imperials in it. Those are the main like work guitars. My fun guitars, and all of those have 10s on them. Just like, I don't know, Ernie Ball 10s. I'm not really all that picky there. My fun guitars is the Friedman Cali, which I think has 10s on it. And that's my best sounding guitar is the Tally and Les Paul. The Cali sounds like the Les Paul, just a little leaner, as you'd expect. It's not a Les Paul. But it's got that sort of presence to it. So like, it's a little like leaner, but it still has that cut to it. So the Cali has 10s, I think. And I just put a hybrid 9 to 46, I think, on my Friedman, the blue one. I don't know what it's called, the T. So, and I don't know. I've been kind of like waffling between 10s and the hybrid 9, 10, but I think I'm going to go back to the 10s. I like the tension on the 10s a lot.
Yeah. I for Floyd Roses though, I like 9s for me, but that's cool.
It's a tricky balance because the Floyd Rose, like, I want it to be really smooth and wiggly, but also like I really miss the tension of the Telly and the Les Paul with 10s. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I also juggle picks like there's no tomorrow. I'll go between the Dunlops, like the orange, the .60s, and then go up to the I like the bigger Jazz 3s. If I have to play something articulate, the ones that I could actually hold because the Eric Johnson size are so small.
Yeah.
Like I can't actually hold them. But I have to jump between depending on the style. Like for bass, it's always this like orange 60s. For strummy stuff, it's the yellow or the orange, and then the more articulate and like modern metal-y stuff, I just get heavier, and the more groovy stuff, I get lighter. And then if it's something that's really super groovy, I'll play all upstrokes, which is really hard, and it sounds like I barely know how to play guitar, but it'll sound kind of cool.
G-Man Music. Dave, are you doing an amp for Neil Sean?
Could be.
Ooh.
No, he said that. Yeah. We're doing something. We'll see what it winds up being.
Rick Hollis says, what's up, Rick? Just bought a bunch of NYXL 9.5s. I have a few of those. Halfway and best of both worlds for me.
Yeah.
Those are cool. I may try those on my Floyd Rose guitars. So we had a question from Robert Baker. He said, what's the worst accident you've had on your gear or something? What's everyone's worst gear accident? Dropped an amp or guitar?
So mine is I have the Fryette Power Station, and I talked to Steve about this. there's no actual, like, he should have a red outlined, like, washer screw on the power amp to speaker. And he said it just doesn't fit. So, because I was jumping between, like, speaker and amp and preamp and all this stuff, I plugged a 50-watt power amp directly into my my computer interface.
Oh,
And I was like, I wonder why I'm not getting any sound. And then I heard an incredible explosion from the other room and a little pop. And so I blew up my Symphony system that I've taken my Apogees over to Apogee. Thankfully, they're in Santa Monica. I've taken them over so many times, but that was the worst. I plugged a 50-watt power amp into a computer interface directly with nothing in between. It was just like, here you go. A nuclear blast.
I can't think
I can't think of one personally off the top of my head.
When was the last time you were electrocuted?
Oh, that happens routinely. That happens routinely.
Even still, huh?
The longer you do it, the more you get electrocuted.
Oh.
Because the more haphazard you get.
You're like, I'm a pro. I know this. I've been doing this for.
It's like, yeah, the amp's on. I can just change part in there while it's on, right? Then you make a little slip and touch something, and you're like, ah.
God.
How about you, Mark?
It's okay.
I haven't electrocuted myself in a while. Yeah, I don't have any gear accidents that I can think of. Yeah, nothing. Except for like the guitar on the my Cali up on the fan the other night. But
that'll do it.
Yeah, that was. But I just looked at it and was like, oh, it looks pretty much the same. So, yeah.
I've got this Marshall Silver Jubilee reissue, and for the life of me, I could not get it to sound good. And I go back and forth with it. And then I saw on that John Norum website, I'm like, oh, here's the John Norum settings. Let me go find his. All of them are always like the master volume is just blitzed.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'll plug it into the power station. And every time, the last time I did that, I found Joe Bonamassa's settings, which are the master volume is on 10, and it blew up the amp.
Really?
Within 3 minutes. Yeah, I don't know if it was poor tubes or something. And then this one, I plugged in the power station, and I got that really delicious electrical fire smell. I'm like, all right, I got to turn this back. This isn't going to work for me. This is going to be bad news. So, I averted disaster, but
so you couldn't turn it all the way up.
No, I mean there's potential for a really good sound out of that amp. It's got one sound.
Right.
It's one really cool sound. And it's weird. It's like going to an escape room. If you could find the proper code, like it's got a good sound.
Right.
But yeah, when you get to a certain point, I don't know. The reissue is not happy. Not happy at all.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, question with like. So I understand the need for on production amps. You have to have a consistency with tubes, and they have to work. That's like the number one thing. They have to work.
Yes.
But you could go online and get new old stock tubes and stuff like that. Can I just, while the amp is working, can I pull a preamp tube and try another preamp tube?
Yeah. While it's on, you can do it.
While it's on, and what do I
might
take a paper
pop or something, but
take a paper towel and do it because they get hot.
Preamp tubes don't get that hot. They get a little hot, but it's not like enough where you can't pull them out.
Power amp tubes? Should I not?
Power amp tubes, you don't want to pull that out with your bare hands while it's going.
Okay.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. And also, when you put new power tubes, you should have it rebiased anyway.
Okay, I don't know anything about that, so I'll just stick with the preamp tubes.
Rick Hollis says my power station smells when I crank up the small box through it as well.
Oh, maybe it's something just when you put a bunch of power through the power station.
Yeah, just the resistors are getting really hot, and they kind of tend to start to smell.
Oh.
But it's not going to blow it up?
Good question.
It might. Hey, Steve Fryette's right down the street as well, so.
Yeah, so it's not too hard.
I saw he's coming out with a V2, or actually a new version of the power station.
Yeah, it's a new version, and it has KT88s.
Oh, really?
Oh.
If you read into the advertisement, it's 2 channels.
Right.
Switch between sets of controls. So 2 sets of controls, and it's a 100-watt power section.
Oh shit!
With KT88s.
So
wow.
what's the purpose of the dual section? Is it so you can use 2 amps?
Signal levels. No, just volume.
Oh, so you can have a boost.
Yeah, tone or volume.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve is a super cool guy. Like, he's one of those guys that you just flip the switch of like, can you tell me about this? And you've got 40 minutes of like incredible, like historical guitar amp information.
Oh, Steve's awesome. I've known him forever. You know, I've known him. I remember when he walked in the door with the first Pitbull amplifier.
He's another guy that has that punk angle, like that you.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Especially
yeah.
him. Big time. He used to be in the Dickies.
That's
Really?
right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You need to go back and watch our Tone Talk.
Yeah, he talked about that. Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. He's got a killer shell pink Esquire. Old shell pink Esquire.
Original shell pink?
Yeah. Original.
Really? Wow.
Badass. He's had it forever. As long as I've known him, he's had it. And it's a killer guitar. And I told him I'm making a Friedman pink Esquire. Shell pink Esquire. And he's like, I gotta see that.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
he's coming out with a new power amp, I saw. Or it's it's an anniversary edition of his power amp.
Yes.
Oh, classic, yeah.
Yeah.
It's expensive. But
expensive. I asked how much it was, but
the classic is really good. It's sort of like the inverse of the 2150. I had a friend that let me borrow his classic, and when I plugged it in, I thought it was broken because I was so used to the scoop sound of the 2150.
Yeah.
And it's almost the inverse of the 2150. The classic is like, if the 2150 is a scoop, the classic is a mid-range hump.
Big hump, yeah.
Yeah, it's great sounding. And so the classic and Steve was saying the power station is based on the classic idea.
Yeah.
Except the power station is fairly transparent.
Mm-hmm.
So he had said, I can only retain so much information, but he gave me so much information. There's a point in the power tubes where you can get a lot of character out of them, or you could get a very neutral sound. And I think the power station is more in that neutral zone. You don't need to double up on, El34 tones if you're plugging a Marshall into the power station.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's such a good tool. It's a really good sounding power amp.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. It sounds great. I'm actually looking forward to when Boss comes out with their what's it called again? The Waza tube expander. Yeah, the tube expander.
Tube expander. Does that have a power amp section in it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, you told me that sounded good, huh?
Sounded really good. We did some pretty exhaustive tests here. We listened. We compared loads of different load devices and a real cabinet with a static IR, so we could really hear what the different loads were doing compared to a real cabinet in another room. And the bosses in a certain setting because you have like a 4 or 5 position, I forgot, for low and high frequencies of the load. So you can make it sound like different speakers.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, in the one setting that we had, which I think was both knobs all the way up, was the classic kind of Marshall, kind of 4x12 thing. And it was the closest to the real 4x12 by far as a load. And then we did a test where we tracked one of my old Marshall Plexi direct just to the cabinet, right? and then we put the Waza tube expander between the plexi and the cabinet, using its power amp, matched the volume, tracked that, and then edited it together so it was one pass to see if we could hear the difference, and we couldn't.
Oh,
couldn't hear it. I was waiting for the power amp not to be great, but it was really good.
Wow.
And like we all stood in the room. We're like, "Can you hear a difference? Can you hear a difference?" None of us could hear the difference. I mean, if there was a difference, it was like 1% different, as much as like a different brand of cable.
Right.
yeah.
Like nothing crazy. It was all there.
But honestly, everything Boss makes is pretty damn good.
It's pretty damn good. This was well thought out, and ever since Yoshi has been the president, and all the stuff they come out with, all the Waza stuff and all the new products since he's been around, they've been great.
Yeah, top notch stuff.
Top notch, well thought out. He doesn't generally make something that's crappy, but he's a guitar player too, so he plays.
Yep. We've had a couple of repeat questions, so I want to make sure we get to them. Harmonicaster Dave, are the Chinese-made Celestion Vintage 30s any good?
Well, they're the only ones that are made.
Oh, okay.
The UK ones were made for Mesa Boogie, but it was a different design. So currently, the only vintage 30 available for a million years now has been Chinese. So are they different than the old ones? It's impossible to tell because you don't have a new old one.
So I was talking to Steve about those vintage 30s, and he's convinced that not all vintage 30s are the same either.
No.
There's at least two sort of varieties of vintage 30. There's like the better sounding vintage 30, and then the like sounding vintage 30.
Yeah.
So, which I don't know.
How do you tell the difference?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's the ones that Marshall used, which weren't vintage 30s. They say Marshall Vintage on them. It's a different speaker. It's not a vintage 30. And then there was the ones that back in the day that we used all the time that was a great sounding vintage 30. Is the Chinese different? Well, you can just go on YouTube. Plenty of comparison videos.
So the vintage 30 though has been around since like the mid 80s. Is that
vintage 30 was around 88? That's when it came. It came out around then.
Huh.
Okay. And what was the main speaker before that? Like it would go mid 80s. Greenbacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
65 watt Celestions and greenbacks and stuff like that. 30 watt Celestions.
I remember Sykes at his gig. He brought his Jose modded Marshalls. Mm-hmm. He's like, I won't play without my Jose modded Marshalls. And his 412s were rented, and he requested 100 watt speakers in each of them. So I don't even know what a 100 watt Celestion is. But they didn't have 100 watt Celestians in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had 75 watt, and then the tech wired it up, and it was like, oh, he's like, I like this. This is kind of cool. Is there a 100 watt Celestion?
There is a 100 watt Celestion. I know Diesel uses it in some cabinets, but at the time there wasn't a 100 watt Celestion.
Huh. Okay.
He was asking for a 100 watt cab, which would be green.
I think it was 100 watt. Oh, with him, who knows?
Yeah. So.
Islander Winder says, Dave, did you ever get your EL34 problem sorted out?
Yeah, we use EL34s.
Electro harmonics.
Very reliable for. Actually, the most reliable that we've used.
That's good.
Yeah.
And does that seem to be like across the board? Like, if I'm going to get a 12AX7, do I buy an EH 12AX7 or do I get a Sobtech 12AX7?
Depends.
So is it
It depends on
it's
the
a crapshoot?
Chinese 12AX7s across the board are generally great, but you generally can't use them in first stages of amps because they're pretty microphonic in general. So sometimes you can if you pick through a bunch. But there's various other things like Sovtech WB preamp tubes are pretty cool sounding. The tongue sole preamp tubes are pretty cool sounding. We use JJ in the first slot. Not the greatest sounding, but the least microphonic of everything. And in production, it's the only thing we can really use reliably. But after the fact, you can always play with preamp tube and get different sounds. Mm-hmm. So they all have a sound. LPS, the Soldano LPS ones, 12AX7 LPS, those are cool. They're longer plates. They're good for phase inverters and things.
Deja Blue, will oil penetrate a roasted maple neck? Yeah, it should. Yeah, I mean, when I got this neck, it's roasted maple with a rosewood board. I stained it and it worked fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Dave, so you've heard probably hundreds and hundreds of guitars now that have different woods. Like, I would say a year ago, there was that huge guitar internet nerderation of guitar tone woods.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, oh, it doesn't matter, and people trying to disprove it. I don't know. To me, it's like always like, okay, well, I know my telly is ash and it has a sound. Mm-hmm. Mahogany seems to have a sound. You've probably heard a bunch of guitars, the same model in different woods. Yeah. Do you hear a sound? Have you recognized the sound in the woods?
No, of course.
For whatever reason.
Woods sound totally different. Hard to explain. I mean, I personally love, for like Strat and Telly style guitars, I really like Alder. Alder's very even and sort of not too bright, not too bassy, really full and punchy in the mids. Not mid-rangey, but more even, mm-hmm. and solid sound. Ash tends to be a little more scoop sounding, a little more like crispy tops and bigger bottoms. Mm-hmm. When you start getting maple capped on top of stuff, that starts, I mean, like, mahogany sounds very woody and thick, sort of. But when you start putting maple caps on it, then it kind of gives some snapback to it. And then when you're talking like basswood is a softer wood. It's basswood is kind of cool sounding for like a hard rock kind of thing. A lot of 80s guitars like Ibanez and things for basswood, Mm-hmm. I like a little more cut than that though. And then you start getting into the maples for bodies and things, which are hard. Like, George Lynch always used maple bodies. And Cantrell's guitars were maple bodies. But it's a very hard, punchy sound. So is Northern Ash, similar to maple. Heavy and very dense and mm-hmm. very brutally smack you in the face, but that can be super cool in some, depends on what you're going for,
And do you think that roasting the wood changes the tonality of it?
Good question. I don't have enough experience with that to really know. Theoretically, taking the moisture out of the wood is probably better. But, I kind of feel that way with old 412s. The ones that are old and dried out are kind of really hollow sounding, and like mm-hmm. when you tap on them, they almost sound like a drum in some respects, and those sound amazing generally. Mm-hmm. But the wood is really dried out and old.
Yeah, interesting.
Also, Tolex on a cabinet or no Tolex on a cabinet sounds different.
Right, there's the famous Dave Friedman cabinet that has no Tolex left on it.
Yeah. No, I mean
naked.
the cabinet. We've tried this. We tried it with two different, sets of cabinets, and we've tried this before, and it resonates differently. It sounds different without the Tolex. It makes sense. If you put Tolex in your guitar, would it sound different?
Yeah. Probably.
I think so.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it'd be muffled.
Sort of like that in some respects. Yeah.
Deja.
Less lively.
What's that?
Less lively.
Yep. Deja Blue, ETA on the Jakey Lee amp and Soldano slows coming out.
I don't know. I have Jakey Lee's main guitar sitting here right now, waiting for him to come and do some final tweaks. So.
I got to play that the other day.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was such a treat because you never get to like touch a master's instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in some ways it was just a guitar, which was a little bit of a bummer. It was like, oh, there's no trick to it. Like, his action was higher than I thought it would be. And like, he just is a great player.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think most good players, and you can probably attest to this too with Philip and everything, most great players, action is quite high.
yeah, that's what I've found.
Because they like to get in a live, at least how they've expressed it to me, is in a live, live show, they like to get under the string. If it's too low, the finger just slips off the string. They can't get under it. And, they're sweaty and everything, and they can't get under it. And that's the thing. I've been told that a million times. And also, I remember Steve Steven was telling me, he goes, it sounds different. Try it. And if you have your action really low and you're listening to this guitar, and then you raise that action to quite high, the tone actually gets better. It's not like brushing against the frets. It's not, it's a more sustain. Everything. It gets better.
It opens up.
It opens up. It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, my best sounding guitars are not the easiest to play.
Yeah.
I have to fight them for sure.
So,
But then I fight against that, and I'm like, oh, I'd sure like to have something that's so much easier to play. And then it's a kind of a trade-off.
right.
Yeah.
I also pick kind of hard, typically, which is kind of why I jump back between picks. So, like, I would like a hard pick and a really strong attack. But the orange Dunlops really kind of like lighten up my attack. So
Yeah.
like, string gauge kind of helps with that.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
had
there's a
mentioned, like,
balance between string gauge and pick thickness.
yeah,
Yeah.
you had mentioned on a
Yeah.
podcast before about Eddie using like light gauge strings cranked into a Marshall
And
with
thin
9
picks.
gauge. Yeah, it's like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Well, it dawned on me one day. It was like, well, wait a minute. So, like, one of the when the Fender EVH ones came out, it was small frets, 9 gauge turned to E flat. I mean, if you strike that string too hard, it's just like, raw. It's all over the place, but the small frets made sense because the gauge of the string and the tuning. If you had large frets, you'd be pulling it out of tune by just pressing down on the fret,
Yeah.
And then again, also the light pick made sense because if you used a super thick pick with that string gauge and that tuning, and you're just putting it out of tune by striking the string once. So it all made sense.
Yeah, you know what? Like seeing Philip Sayce and John Syxes and like Eric Gales play not plugged in, just acoustically on the guitar, that was like the most revelation kind of things of like, oh, they sound amazing.
Yeah.
Not plugged in.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Did you ever hear that Steven Rosen interview with Eddie Van Halen from around 19 Fair Warning era, or no, maybe it was before that? Van Halen 2 era? I can't remember. Van Halen 2 era. That's what it was.
Where he's like playing acoustically. Yeah.
He's playing acoustically on the guitar and showing like the new riffs and noodling around on this guitar. and he's playing acoustically, or maybe it was an amp. I don't know, but clean amp, if anything. I don't quite remember now. And I mean, tapping, pick harmonics, everything that you heard on the record, but totally clean.
Right.
And you heard everything, the tapping, everything, and all the harmonics and the pick squeals and everything clean.
There's no faking it. They just do it.
And I go, that's his hands. That's just him.
Yeah.
Him. Just plug him into whatever, and he sounds like him.
Yeah, Robert Baker and I were joking about Richie Kotzen the other day.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, it's like this guy who's like 17, 18 years old, and he could do anything on the guitar. He actually was one of my best friend's next door neighbors too, and he had always said he could pick up any stringed instrument, and he just picks it up no matter what it's tuned to, and he just starts playing music with it. But I think there's some people that the physical part of it is instantaneous.
Right.
Like, it's not for me. I've still been practicing the Crossroads suite. I've been doing that for 25 years, and I'm still not even close to getting it. But I think some of those people just get it. They're like the Michael Jordans, where they're able to do it, and they can just focus on the music. They're like, oh, the technical part's so easy. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And now I could focus on what I'm playing instead of like how I'm actually doing it.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Some people have that innate talent, you know?
Yeah. It's a bummer because sometimes you want to think like, oh, I can play all this Nuno Betancourt stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I've been working on this shit for 30 years.
I know.
It's not.
It's sometimes you just like you said, you just want to put the guitar down and be like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah. Hopefully there's people like Angus Young and stuff where you sound like a badass and not have to like worry about the like really that hardcore technical stuff.
Right.
Just focus on the cool shit.
Yeah. By the way, we've had several questions, Dave, about Jake's guitar that's with you. So is it the white one or the blue one? And can you show it to us? And
it's the white one, and I'm not going to show it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'll tell you, it looks exactly like the white one.
It is the white one.
Because it is the white one.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. Flash Grover says, Dave, how about some other junior amps? Any chance of a Steve Stevens 100 Junior?
Don't know. We'll see what the future, maybe.
So that's one I haven't played. Like, I haven't played any of the Steve Stevens. And Steve Stevens lent his amps to Steve Vai for Eat 'Em and Smile. Is that an amp? Like, how did the Steve Stevens Friedman amp come to be? Is it based on his Marshalls? Or is it something where it's like, you had the BE and you're like, let me just dial it into what
we started with a BE and circuit kind of, and we tweaked it for his own taste, what he liked. It was a little different, a little fatter, a little smoother. As an audio taper treble pot, so it's a little darker to begin with.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's not really darker. It's just the taper of the treble pot. Sort of like how the Bogner Ecstasy is. It's like the treble pot is an audio taper, so it's really kind of a dark amp till you get it up higher.
Darker than the BE standard.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, until you turn the knob up to where, like a quarter turn different, kind of. So.
Right. And Dave, do you? I see that Roxy Depew mentioned the ohms. Do you run? I just run at 8 ohms because I figure like if I fuck up, at least I'm only like one notch shifted over. And nothing too bad will happen. Where do you run your amps at when you're like voicing them?
16 ohms to 16 ohm cap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you use an 8 ohm into the 16 ohm cap?
No, I'm 8 at an 8 ohm cap.
Oh yeah, that sounds different.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it does sound different if you're, because someone Roxy DePlue said, why does EVH prefer 16 ohm cabs? What's the tone difference?
8-ohm cabs to me seem like they have a lot more mid-range to them. And the 16-ohm cabs seem bigger sounding, a little more, scooped. Not scooped per se, but more scooped. That's interesting.
As a person that has plugged a 100-watt power amp into an audio interface, I'm worried about having the ability to plug into like the wrong ohms also.
So you can do that with 8 though too, right? No?
I guess I have done that with 8.
You don't have to worry too much. As long as there's a load on the amp, it's probably not going to hurt it.
Oh, okay.
It's not too mismatched. So
the most like liberating thing for me ever was I watched some video, and I don't even know if it's true, about the bypass switch. And they're like, that bypass switch is bullshit. Like,
standby switch.
Yeah, the standby switch.
Yeah, it is bullshit.
Oh, okay, great. That's the most liberating thing of like, you got to put the standby switch, got to wait 2 minutes, and then you could turn your amp off. I'm like, both off.
Flip it off, flip it on. It's no problem.
That's how I've been doing it. Yeah. What about grill?
It's actually easier, to be honest. It's actually sort of easier on the tubes to actually just flip them on or off, because the tube, it's not like it gets a surge. It all slowly comes up and slowly drops down. It actually gets more of a surge when the tube is up, and then you just flip the standby, and it just gets high voltage all of a sudden. So
interesting.
That's
not really neat.
Better.
It's a glorified mute circuit. I mean, I have it on a lot of my amps, but it's just because.
It's like tradition.
People like to see it, and it's a mute.
Cecil Music says, what about the grill cloth, like the basket weave on orange cabs? Will that attenuate?
Yeah. Makes a difference. Thicker grill cloth, more attenuation of highs. Sure.
Is the butter slacks thick? That's a fancy.
No, that's like the standard checkerboard stuff. Not that thick. No.
Oh, okay.
Kind of thin. The vintage cabs we have a thick kind of cane on them.
So I love
Marc's
412s. I like 112s. 212s are a zone that I'm kind of like, I'm not sure. Like, what's your take?
Sounds really good.
Okay.
I don't know. Sometimes I like it even better.
Mm.
I remember we were doing a bunch of clinics, and a couple times we had 212s, and I'm like, I think that cuts better. It's kind of better.
Is there a Friedman 212, or is there multiple models of?
There's a Friedman 212, yeah.
Okay.
The only multiple models have different grill cloth. It's the same model.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I don't even know if this is a serious question. Vintage Sounds. Hey, Dave Freeman, I'm running a 100-watt head into a 32-ohm 2x12.
If you're running into a 32-ohm 2x12, you have it wired wrong.
I've never heard of a 32-ohm 2x12.
Well, it's two 16-ohm speakers wired in series. That's incorrect. Wire them in parallel to make it 8 ohms. 32 is probably not great for your amp.
Wow, I've never even heard of that. Interesting. Okay.
Someone probably just shoved 2.6. It was probably wired originally for two 8-ohm speakers in series, which would equal 16 ohms, and then someone at some point in time replaced the two speakers with two 16-ohm speakers.
And didn't change the wiring.
Change the wiring, yeah.
Did your Friedman cabin or Celestion ever come out?
No, because I'm not totally happy with it yet.
Okay.
And I haven't revisited it yet. So.
What ships, like if you buy a 412 cab from Friedman?
2 vintage 30s and 2 greenbacks in it. Greenbacks in the top, vintage 30s in the bottom.
And you prefer the Chinese greenbacks?
Well, there are no Chinese greenbacks anymore.
Oh.
They're made. The same greenback is back now and made in England.
Oh, okay.
So now, pretty much the only guitar speaker made in China is the vintage 30.
This is funny. I remember this amp. Jimmy Bitter or Biter says the Peavey Classic 212 is a nice cab, or the Peavey Wiggy cab. Remember that amp, the Wiggy?
Yeah. It was a solid state.
Yeah.
Something to do with Dweezil Zappa?
That was a Dweezil Zappa thing, yeah.
It looked like Happy Days.
Yes.
Like old 50s car, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like rounded. Oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
It was like this rounded top. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool. I never heard one, how it sounded. But.
You know what? There's a... You could make a killer solid state amp. It's not going to sound like a Friedman, but you can make it super vibey. Like, there's the old Peavey amps. Like, they're really cool.
You want to know the coolest solid state amp I've worked on ever?
Okay, can I guess? I'm going to guess. I think the coolest solid state amp is the little Marshall head that's about this big.
Well, that was cool. But in recent times, I worked on Neil Young's Baldwin Exterminator.
I don't even know what that is.
Baldwin Exterminator is huge. It's like stands 5 feet tall, pretty much, or 4.5 feet tall, or whatever. And it has it's stereo, and it has two. In each side, it's like a 15, a 12, and an 8 or something like that.
Holy crud, I just found it on Google Images.
And it looks like something that came out of an old bowling alley.
Huh.
And he uses that in conjunction with his, his Tweed Deluxe and stuff. And, man, we got it working right. And it's a solid state amp, but we got it working right, and it had this uniquely cool sparkle, and the reverb was amazing, and the trem was cool, and it did this, and even it distorted really cool also. It was like, very much old, crappy amp style,
Yeah.
But man, was it cool. And like, when I was done with it, I was like, God, I kind of want one now. God,
That's
cool.
insane.
It was cool sounding, man. It was cool sounding.
I mean, I could get my PV musician to sound like Black Sabbath.
I mean, the funny thing about that amp was when you stand next to it and it's like up to your chest, right? You see that there's one handle on top. And you're like,
going to carry that.
No wheels, no nothing. What is the one handle on top for? Pulling it down so that someone could grab it from the bottom or something? I don't know. You need a giant from Game of Thrones or something, to lift up the amp,
It's nuts, and it's got the 5-color little...
Oh, it's awesome. If anything, it's just awesome to look at.
That's amazing.
But it was amazing sounding. It was really cool. I got it after I heard it. I'm like, oh, this is really cool.
Neil Young, though, I mean, he's one of those guys that as a kid I was like poo-pooed. Like the Rolling Stones and Neil Young were in the same bucket for me until I got much later, and it was like, oh, I heard Cortez the Killer, and I heard the Get Your Yayas from Rolling Stones. It was, oh, these guys are the shit.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Yeah, Neil Young, like, it's interesting you say that, because with Crazy Horse, I never got into it at all. But I really loved his acoustic stuff. But his harder rocking stuff didn't do it for me.
Really, like, because the Crazy Horse, I think, is where he had a great album with Cortez the Killer and the Rockin' in the Free World. And I remember hating Rockin' in the Free World when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But now when I hear it, I'm like, oh, he's destroying with like 3 chords.
No, it's great. It's great, but to me, like quintessential Neil Young is like, the Needle and the Damage Done and, that stuff,
The acoustic-y
stuff, yeah, for me at least.
I have to go back and do some homework.
That's more my favorite Neil Young stuff, but it just, everybody has their stuff, but
Yeah. Robert Baker has a question. Anyone ever play an Ingve Rhino amp when he wasn't with Marshall? I had no idea.
I didn't remember that even.
Me either. Yeah. I have no recollection of that. Peavey VTM-60 was awesome. Well, we talked about that with James Brown.
Yeah, VTMs are great.
Totally cool amp.
That's like the secret Soundgarden amp, isn't it? The VTM like 120 or something.
It might be. I know it had that because James told us that he like copied basically a Jose modded Marshall for that.
Right, with the faceplate and the little dip switches.
Yeah, the little
where you
dip
could
switches.
Kind of
Yeah.
dial in.
Yep.
It was kind of a in between 800 / Jose. It was there was in some modes it was very close to Jose. There was elements taken off the original Butcher amp that they had, which was an 800, and the Jose amp with the power section is a little different. I have one. I bought one.
Oh,
really?
You do have one? Really?
I have one. Yeah, it's pretty good sounding actually.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They're not expensive. I mean, if you could find one.
No, but you know what? It's the heaviest amp ever known to mankind, and it has nothing to do with the amp. If you take the amp out of the head box and just try to pick up the head box, it's made of particle board and it's super thick sides. It is so heavy, the head box alone, that you're like, what the hell? Yeah.
Yeah, Peavey did that. They would just make their boxes just so freaking heavy.
Oh, it was bulletproof, but boy, man, was it heavy.
So Brian Landau says, who hasn't owned a Peavey Bandit? Peavey Bandit 112, that was my first amp. And my first pedal was the Marshall Governor pedal.
I had a Peavey Renown 212.
Renown.
How about you?
Yeah, that
Marc,
was the first amp, though. That was the second amp.
Mark, you were older when you got into guitar amps?
Yeah. So
Was it a Peavey?
No, I actually my first amp was a Squier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, got a little Squier amp with the Squier guitar.
Mine was a Fender Silverface Deluxe Reverb.
Oh, dang.
Well, that's
A
pretty
Music
good.
Master guitar. And a plastic MXR overdrive pedal.
Yeah, but that's probably going to sound pretty good.
That's a good rig.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish I still had it.
Yeah.
I have plastic MXR overdrive, though. I rebought it just for nostalgia's sake.
I've never seen a plastic one.
Yeah, the Command series, it was called. They were all plastic.
Oh,
The whole box was plastic. The switch was plastic. Everything. And they were they sounded great though. They were still like the MXR circuits. You know, the phaser and the flanger all sound cool. But kind of a hunk of crap. I'll show it to you next time you come over. Ask me to show it to you.
All right. Have you ever heard the Marshall Governor pedal?
Yeah, it's great.
It's really great.
Yeah.
I just rebought it just for shits and giggles, and it's phenomenal.
Did you get an older one or the like the reissue later on?
Well, I got the big fat, the giant one with the 80s lines across it.
Okay,
that look
yeah,
like
yeah.
Airwolf.
Yeah. Because they
Great.
they reissued it at some point. I remember when that was one of the first pedals that I had gotten, which was that it was more in like a newer enclosure.
Oh, that's right. They had sort of like a smaller, roundy.
Yeah, it was like silver. Yeah, they had a couple of lines or a couple pedals in that line. Dave, is the VTM you have a 120 or a 60?
60, I think.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I looked at the VTMs after James was on the show. I was like, oh, maybe I'll pick one of those babies up. But
Yeah, I got it cheap.
did you buy it locally or had it shipped?
No, I had it shipped.
Really? Bjorn says we should have Dan Huff on.
I agree.
I agree too.
That'd be great. I don't know him, so if someone knows him, get him on the show for us.
It might
Every
be.
interview I've seen
Yeah.
though, he's very non like guitar nerdy. Which I feel like when you get that
he's
good
that
at music, you're not that guitar nerdy. You're like music nerdy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. He's got all the tones and stuff, but it's really like he's so music-y. Like he could plug into anything and be like, "Oh yeah, that's Dan Huff."
I want to have Brendan O'Brien on.
Yeah.
No doubt. That would be amazing.
Maybe we'll have Michael back to be a guest co-host.
I just drool the whole time.
That's questions.
So Brendan, I had read in a STP article, like he plays guitar. They'd said like he's a really good guitar player
And drummer.
and drummer.
Yeah. And keyboard player. He's just one of those guys.
He's just good.
Yeah,
He's a
good.
great musician. Oh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Um,
So how do you,
Well,
when you, because you can make anything, I'm guessing, Dave, you could just wake up and be like, I'm going to make this. You don't go onto Reverb every morning and go like, I'm hoping I could get a $300 amp.
I do
But there's
go
an
on
amp
Reverb.
that's like the cost of a pedal.
I do
It's
go on.
hard to say no.
Yeah, I do go on Reverb though, and you know I love searching by eras. You know how you on Reverb you can search by time era,
Yeah.
like effects pedals, 70s or 80s, and then you look at all the effects pedals and you're just kind of scrolling through, and you're like, "Ooh, that one looks cool. Maybe I'll buy that one today." Click.
Yeah.
yep.
It's like, wow, look at that old Maxon phaser. I want that. Click.
That's mine.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I come. Sometimes I just want to buy something. I'll just go on there and just like look around, and if something really kind of floats my boat, I'll just buy it. I mean, generally not expensive stuff, but $150 pedals or something, no big deal. Yeah, I'll buy it.
But you're not out there buying amps, though.
I'm not buying amps. I don't know. I've seen enough amps. I would like to, but everything I really like is like $10,000 or something.
So like what is your dream amp? I mean, you could build any amp you want, but is there a dream amp? Is it a Jose mod or is it a?
No, I already have it. It's my Plexi 50-watt Marshall.
Okay. And that's the tops.
That's what everything's based off of.
God.
So I already have it.
That's awesome. We've had people asking us to have some guests on. Paul Rivera would be good. Randall,
Yep.
Randall
Martin
Smith.
Kidd from Victory Amps. That'd be cool. I love Martin. He's a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yep. We're still waiting for Delana Scott. Delana will come on, hopefully. We haven't asked her yet, but hopefully she'll come on. So yeah, we actually have the next set of guests. Actually, let me pull it up because I don't remember shit. So June 7th is John Cusack from Cusack Pedals, not the actor from the 80s. And then June 28th, we've got Nilly Brosh. You know Nilly? Michael Nielsen?
No.
Nilly, she's a Israeli guitar player, female guitar player. She rips.
Has she guested with Pete a couple times?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. No.
I'm not sure that.
She played in Michael Jackson's Cirque du Soleil show in Vegas for several years.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so yeah, she's just a great player. So she's
Awesome.
coming on, and then we've got Chris Van Tassel from J Rocket Audio. We're going to get him on, and who else? I think there's a few others that I can't remember right now, but it's all in the works. So we'll have more guests soon.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's see. Are there any other questions for Michael? before we wrap up. How about the owner of Wizard Amps?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, and Nelly toured with Tony McAlpine.
Dang.
Yeah, so you know she's got to be good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Michael, are you thinking of Larry Basillo? Oh, Larry Basillo was the guitar player who was with Pete for a little bit.
Is she Brazilian?
Yes.
That's totally who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And she's amazing.
Amazing.
Such good feel.
Yeah, she's really, really... You know who... Dave, you met her, right? Larry Basillo?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
She's not bad to look at either.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's so nice when she smiles when she plays. Like, I make the worst faces when I play because guitar is really hard. So it's just like, oh, this is so hard to do.
Yeah, and she's smiling, and she's got this great smile, and she's just playing like, you know, like this is so easy.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All
right. And then we're also going to have Pete Thorne and Holly Henderson on.
Yeah,
that's
great.
That's coming soon too. So I think we've exhausted all the questions.
Oh, Braxel asked me, should I take my master volume out of my 50-watt 72 Marshall? Yes. Put it to stock. Use an attenuator.
Mm-hmm. Get a power station.
Yeah, get a power station. Actually, to be honest, even the Rivera Rock Crusher does a really nice job.
Dan Pfeiffer says, still on? Damn, I went to a baseball game and back, and Tone Talk is still going.
Yes, we're long-winded, but we're wrapping it up now, Dan.
A baseball game, too.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right.
Guitar Guru Network. Brendan is a wicked guitar player. Wish he'd come to Atlanta. Good seeing you, Keith. Hope you're doing good. All right, well, we'll wrap it up. Michael, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh, thank you guys. That was fun.
You're awesome.
Thanks for indulging my questions, guys.
Oh, no, man.
You didn't go too deep.
I'll
I thought you were going to ask me more rack questions.
Well, I'll nerd out another time. I'll go deeper.
So guys, please hit the subscribe button and thumbs up if you can, but please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get the notifications when we go live. Make sure you subscribe to Michael's channel, Big Hairy Guitars. He's got great videos. He's a really funny guy. I love your videos, Michael.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Your Skype address is great too. Assman69. That was so fun. You had me cracking up this morning when I saw that. I was just like, okay. That made me laugh. That started my morning off good.
Good.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on, guys. Check out his channel, and we'll be back with you in a couple weeks. All right?
Hey, thanks for everyone for coming on and watching. I thought there'd be like 2 people there if we were lucky, so I appreciate it.
Stay on a minute, Michael, while we close out here.
Yeah, we still have 133 people watching, so we've got a nice crowd of people. So you guys have a great weekend. Everybody enjoy the weekend. Thanks for watching the show. And I'm going to hang up now, and we'll talk later. Take care.